Okay.
Going to call the meeting to order.
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Hewer.
Here.
Councilmember Campion.
Here.
Councilmember Lamson.
Here.
Mayor Powers.
Here. We'll take a minute for a silent prayer, please, and the flag salute. Councilmember Hewer, will you please lead us in the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Donna, could you please read the video statement?
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Friday, January 20th at 9 a.m. and Saturday, January 21st at 9 a.m. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Thank you very much. Do we have any agenda approval additions or deletions?
I'd like to remove E4 for discussion.
Okay. And also, I'd like to move up G3, the Tiny Smiles race fee request, because he has to leave, and K1, the appointment of the Galt Parks and Recreation Commissioner. Oh, after the consent calendar. Okay, now we're on the presentation. Community outreach, the police department.
Slides and stuff. Give it a clicker. There are slides. Come up.
I'm good here.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. The first slide is not important. It's the stuff that I'm going to say. The important stuff is when TJ is going to get up here and start talking. The Galt Police Department has, and I inherited, an amazing community outreach program that encompasses all aspects of our community involvement through the schools, through the community, through different organizations, churches. It's absolutely amazing. And so one of the things that when I first got here was to see what we do and if there's any ways to improve that, and to ensure that we can do that effectively with the staff that we have. So our primary goals for community outreach is to build relationships in a safer community and provide information addressing concerns, and make personal contacts with the different organizations and people out in our community, so we can do a better job as a police department. But a lot of the discussions that we've had for our community outreach was with the city of Galt. It seems like the police department is an amazing piece to. We lose power too. Amazing piece to reach out to the community, but it's always bigger than the police department. There's always more. The community always wants more. They always have questions about not only the police department, what we're doing, but what is the city doing. And so, we're going to be exploring ways that we can help make all of these outreach efforts bigger. There's certain events through our neighborhood watch programs and our block parties where we'll be bringing other city staff in and inviting other city leaders to these meetings so that when the community comes out, they can, it's kind of like a one-stop shop. And so I've invited TJ Gattati, he's our crime prevention coordinator, to discuss some of the current programs that we have.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? The chief told me to stay short, so I'm going to promise to do that. So Neighborhood Watch is a vital component of our outreach. That's just working to really bring our residents together on a consistent basis. School resource officers being proactive in the schools and working with the schools and the local community and businesses and crime prevention and patrol to identify issues in the schools to be proactive. Our graffiti removal program, that's our blight reduction program. It's vital that we keep graffiti off of our walls, off of our schools, off of our businesses. It can have a detrimental impact on our community if graffiti is allowed to sit and stay 12, 24 hours. It changes the kind of the mindset of and the culture of a community if you allow graffiti to sit there. So we've done a good job of identifying that. National Night Out, that's once a year. That's kind of where we bring everybody together. All the work we do throughout the year of bringing the community together, and that one night, that one day is to kind of bring everybody together to really kind of say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. Let's keep it up. Let's get better each year. Let's really try to continue the engagement process. The Explorer program, that's a program 14 to 21 years of age for youth that are interested in possibly looking at law enforcement careers. Sometimes you have kids that will come in there. Law enforcement might be something they want to do. They leave going, I might want to be probation. I might want to go into the schools because they see the kind of the cross-section of police work, that it's not just a gun and a badge, it's not just handcuffs. So they see an overall view of law enforcement. Our Grandma Cops program, incredible folks. We have two sitting in the audience right now that do incredible outreach in the schools, K through 5. I've been with her in numerous programs, in the stores. It's a great program, and it really bridges the gaps for our young kids to start to understand what law enforcement's about. The CERT program, that's a community emergency response team. It's a combination between us and CST Fire. It's there to train citizens in case of an emergency situation. First responders are not going to be able to get everywhere. So this process is done to create just a more complete community response to any emergencies that would come up, and having the resources to reach out and hopefully help folks in need at the time. Social media outreach, that's the last 5 years. That's where law enforcement has been going. We've, with the chief, really pushing our Facebook page. It's a way to introduce our community as to what we do, who we are, and share what we're doing, from our meetings to folks bringing cookies to us, to our block parties, to the toy drive. It's a great way to engage our community on a consistent basis. The Care Home Outreach Program, we've been working with them for about 5 years now. That's just a way to continue to stay on top of the care homes, to identify any needs or any issues that come up within our care homes, to reduce the impact that care home clients can have on our community. We just kind of, at the end of the year, the state DSS office is looking at the program we do here and looking at doing that statewide as a model program because of the reduction in care home client issues here in our community. But that's because we meet with them once a quarter now. We're identifying needs and issues in our community, and we're really staying on top of it. And that's a combined effort from the businesses to patrol to investigations to code enforcement. We're all part of that process. Bi-monthly speaker series that started in 2015. It was a way to introduce the community to how we worked internally. And then in 2016, we reached out to different organizations, from Kaiser to the DA's office to the Weave organization, to show people how we work with other organizations to create a safe community. It's not just the Galt Police Department. It's a combined effort locally and regionally to keep our community safe. Our CAPS program, it's along with the Grandma Cops program. Our CAPS are vital. They assist in everything. I mean, literally from abatement issues to special events to assisting records with getting information from the DA's office to and from. They're vital in everything that we do, and they spend thousands of hours to make our department run efficient every single day. The block parties, that's a way to, once a month, to reach out to our neighborhoods and break bread. And And it's kind of a play on words. At the block parties, it's no different than a neighborhood watch meeting. But when you hear the word meeting, people go, I don't want to go to another meeting. But when you say block party, they're like, I can go to a block party. I got to have a hot dog. We still have the same information out there. It's just kind of rebranding it a little bit different. And it's the same process. We just took the meeting and put it to block party, removed the meeting word out of it. And it seems to have taken off. We've had 2 block parties and 80-plus people at each location that we've had in the last 3 months. So it's something that we're going to develop moving on to this year. Diversion program, it's a program that is a combination with the Galt Police Department, Sacramento County District Attorney's Office, schools, the family. It's a first-time offender program, nonviolent juvenile. Maybe it's a graffiti, a shoplift, and they're looking to say, hey, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm willing to make amends to the community, and community service letters, community service in the community, working with patrol. We've had them work with our local churches. The chief does a great job in really promoting the program and letting youth know that once you're done with the program, you're not done with us. We're always there to help you. We're always there to make sure that if you feel you're ever going to go back to that environment that got you in that position, we're going to make sure to kind of help you redirect and get you the resources. So it's a great program. We've been doing that for about 2 years now. Officer Coelho and Officer Slater started the program off when they were both SROs, and it's a great program. Special events, classroom presentations. We've been doing that for almost 10 years now, going back from our character counts program with our 5th graders to our grammar cops programs to now we're going in, we're talking about issues of blight and community policing and teaching our youth at the high school, middle school levels about, being involved in the community. It starts with you. Your school is part of the community, you're part of the community, and at 12, 13, 14 years old, you're right around the corner from being 18. So become part of the process, help us create a safe community. And we've been doing that literally going on about 10 years now in various classroom presentations from our middle schools to our high schools. Special events, it's a great way to build the community. It's that community connection, not only locally, but when folks come from outside of the community and they see us out there, they see us engaged in the community, they're like, this is a place I'd love to live, because they see that community engagement, they see folks talking to the police department, they see us actually sitting down and engaging each other. It's a special kind of environment, whether it's at the Strawberry Festival or the Extravaganza, and it's great feedback when we leave those events, not only from folks locally, but folks from out of the area going, we don't see this in our community. And so that's a plus to us in what we do. The toy drive, we've been doing that now for almost 10 years now with CSD Fire. It's just a great way to reach the community. We serve anywhere between about 600 to 700 kids when we do this program, about 300 to 400 families. It really allows you to see what you have and appreciate what you have, and kind of give back. And the kids, when you see it, and you see a kid light up in those situations, it makes your day. It can make your year, and you can build on community spirit right there with law enforcement and with the community and with fire being involved, and let our community know that we're here for you. We're here for you in many, many different ways. Vehicle abatement, that falls under the category of graffiti removal. Vehicle abatement is reducing blight in our community. You allow vehicles to sit, on a street with flat tires or in a driveway, or, you combine that with graffiti. If we're not taking care of that, it changes the culture and the mindset of our community, and it changes the culture and mindset of a criminal. They see that and they go, they don't care, so why should I? We've done a great job of reducing, vehicles on the street, vehicles in the driveway, and that's combined with our graffiti abatement program, graffiti removal program. Those two really go hand in hand. Next slide, please. Thanks, Chief. So our community outreach, this is, Neighborhood Watch is really fluid. One of the things with Neighborhood Watch the last 5-10 years, actually the last 5 years, social media has kind of taken the place of the traditional Neighborhood Watch meeting. And I remember 10 years ago when I started in Meadowview, I'm like, I'm going to have 100 people at every Neighborhood Watch meeting. That's just not realistic. But what you can do is you find 2 to 3 people in an area that can be your drivers and your voice for that specific community. And in the last 10 years, we've established about 56 to 57 programs. And about every 2 to 3 years, you'll see about 10 or 12 programs that are active. And that's based on the needs of the neighborhood or the community. One of the things that's happened in our community because of our low crime rates, we've seen our Neighborhood Watch programs, they're still there, but some are, you know, more active than others. And at those times, that's when we have to go back. We need a new captain, or we need to address somebody willing to step up to drive the issues in the neighborhood and keep us informed. So it's always fluid. We're always working on it. We're always trying to reach out and really identify ways to reach our community. And that goes back to one of the things that we started doing this year with our regional neighborhood watch meetings. Because people are so busy, and because people hear the word neighborhood watch meeting, they go, I don't want to go to a meeting. So once a month, we're doing a block party, and once a month, we're doing a regional neighborhood watch meeting. And so I know everybody's busy, but it's like at least on a Monday or a Tuesday, whatever night we select at the end of the month, you can make it to that meeting. You can make it to a block party. All the information is the same information we would share at a traditional neighborhood watch meeting, but we're sharing it there in a different format. So again, we're just we're changing the words a little bit, but the process is the same, and we're getting a better turnout because we're taking not just a block or a street, but we're inviting everybody from a specific area, maybe 10, 15 neighborhoods. Come down and meet us on, you know, the 23rd or the 28th or whatever night, on whatever day we select for a regional neighborhood watch meeting or a regional block party, and get to know us. And that kind of goes to what the chief said about the kind of the one-stop shop. Code enforcement might be there, Parks and Recs might be there, CSD Fire could be there. And so it makes it more convenient when folks know I have an issue, I can address it here at this meeting. So neighborhood watch is changed. It's become more fluid. The introduction of Galt Connect at the city level has created a really more efficient flow. 10 years ago, you would have waited to go to a neighborhood watch meeting to talk about the pothole or talk about the graffiti. Now you take a picture, you send it, and you know, you're waiting for the response. That's a plus, the efficiency of you know, the use of social media, the use of the city reaching out and using different ways to reach our community. That would have waited for a neighborhood watch meeting 10 years ago. Now that's part of the process. That's part of how we reach our community too. I think that's really kind of a nutshell and how we do and what we're doing. This is fluid. It's always changing. We're always looking to get better. We're always looking to identify needs in our community. And probably about once every 2 years, I'll literally try to take an area of the city and I go door to door and knock and say, you know, we had issues in the area. We cleaned it up. We're looking to bring some more folks on board with what we do. The baseball streets, the new development, we got 5 or 6 new families that are willing to step up. So every once in a while, you got to get new blood, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We're bringing new blood, you know, onto the team and making them part of our process to help create a safe community.
You're up, so
I'm still up.
you're still up.
I'm still up. I'm trying to keep it short, Chief. I really
You did a
am.
great job.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Planned events. These are some events we have coming up. Neighborhood Watch Regional Meeting, Monday, January 23rd, New Hope Church from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And what we're telling people is we're going to have regional meetings. If you live in the Northeast or Central Galt, it doesn't mean that you can't go to this meeting. It just means they're going to host us this month. And then in February, most likely we're looking at possibly Horizon or maybe even the Galt place to host a meeting centrally. And then in March, we're looking at Rayleigh's to host. So we're going to have one host site a month. And as we look at that, just because you live on one side of town doesn't mean you can't go there. We're just spacing it out to let folks know you can come see us at those events and you can talk to us about what's going on in your neighborhood, whether you live in that area or not. Neighborhood Watch Meeting, Galt Senior Place, 4th and D, January 25th. That's been pretty consistent. We're trying to be consistent with that place. We meet once a month there. We get a pretty good turnout. Great feedback from the community there. Great feedback from the seniors there. They shared information with us pretty consistently about activity, and we've been really proactive, and they like the response they're getting from us. Neighborhood Watch Block Party, Saturday, January 28th, 729 Starge Way. That's going to be a great event. Met with the homeowners who are hosting it. They're really looking forward to bringing out the new neighbors in the community. They're getting good feedback already, so it should be another great event. We're looking forward to assisting and being part of that process. Bi-monthly Galt Police Department Speaker Series, February 15th, Department of Corrections. We're kind of hashing out the details right now. I'm looking to possibly get information on how parole and how CDCR works with local agencies and how they impact the community and community safety. So I was in contact with Jason Lowe today. He's the admin director out at the CDCR training facility, so that should be tighten up in the next couple of days, but it should be a great presentation. Once a month, we'll be doing different events like this. At the beginning of every month, we're going to identify our needs, meet with the chief and lieutenants. We're going to put our needs out, where we're going to be at, and get that out to the community and work to engage our community in a bunch of different ways. So it's not just the traditional, we're going to have a meeting, that's it. These are many of the ways that we're working to engage our community. On you, Chief.
So as you can see, that we stay really busy with the staff that we have. We're able to maintain an amazing community outreach. I thought it was important to come and present that to the public and to council, to let everybody know what we are doing. There's always questions about what we can do, but I think sometimes people, without being reminded of all the things that we do, and that's probably equally as important. So with that, you know, we're working really hard to create a strong bond with the community, maintain the one that we already have and improve it, and then get feedback from them on ways that we can do a better job as a police department. And with that, we're open to any questions anybody might have.
Questions, council?
Well, congratulations, TJ, on your award in December. You do an amazing job. Can we receive monthly updates of your meetings? Because we, in the past, have not received updates of meetings and stuff, and I would really like to receive where the meetings are going to be at and what's.
That's one of the things that we're going to be doing at the beginning of each month. We're going to identify where our meetings are. We're going to get that out to you guys, and then we'll get it out to the public. So it's definitely something we're going to be doing.
And then we've been putting the last couple meetings have been in the weekly council newsletter, and we're going to continue that. We're going to try to keep it 2 weeks, everything 2 weeks out for those announcements in a weekly council newsletter. Everything 2 weeks out, so you guys have an opportunity to look at your calendars and see if you're able to attend.
Well, I think it was great changing it to a block party than a meeting. Well, meetings, you don't think you can take your children, and block party, you always feel like they need to.
Well, that's, I mean, literally, it's like just changing the word from meeting to block party. The first one we did was on Norbury, and I remember we were kind of nervous about 12 o'clock. Like, oh. All of a sudden, it was like waves of people were coming. And I'm like, wow, just change the word from meeting to block party. So
Great
we
idea.
ended up doing it just literally just like, you know, and I'm like, okay, that was easy. Right? Instead of fighting it, saying, come to the meeting, you're getting all the excuses in the world. I can't go to the meeting. I'm like, so just change the words and people come. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, well, thank
thanks,
you
guys.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, TJ.
Thanks, guys.
Donna, could you please read public comment?
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the clerk.
Do we have any? Okay, no speaker sheets, so we're on the information and consent calendar. Vice Mayor Cruz, discussion on E4?
Yes, please. I was reading through it on the discussion portion of it, and something caught my eye, and I just want a little update if I could. Initially, we were going to be putting out pedestrian walkways, but I'm seeing that we're changing a couple of them so they have the audible function, and I'd like a little more information on it if I could.
Sure. Mayor and council members, this is a largely grant-funded project. We have received a number of requests over the past few years from a couple of vocal sight-impaired individuals, particularly down near the market and downtown area, asking when is Galt going to move to audible functions like you might have experienced in some larger communities or the Bay Area. It is not yet a legal requirement, but it is becoming the state of the art as we move forward with new signal systems. And in fact, we have that the new signal put in at Firmaway with the Walmart project has that audible function. So in looking at this, we did put out, when we went out with requests for bids, an ad alternate to see, well, what would it actually cost? If it's not too much, it might be something that we could fund with some of our bike and ped funding. And the cost came in at about $28,000, give or take. And that seemed like to upgrade all of the downtown signals, which is 22 push-button locations. With that upgrade, seemed like a reasonable thing to do. We're going to, in the future, be required to do it as part of ADA transition plans. And the thought was we could sort of leverage an existing contract and the current SACOG grant, maximize that, and then put in some of our TDA bike bed funding to match that. And so we're recommending that we proceed with both the base bid for the 4 flashing crosswalk locations, as well as the 3 signalized upgrades for audible crosswalk signals.
I think it's a great idea. I did have one question regarding one of the crosswalks we have in existence, that being the one on Lake Canyon in Carillion. Have we ever resolved the issues with that? I'm still getting complaints about it not functioning properly.
Yeah, a number of steps were taken by staff to both investigate it. We did do some tree trimming, we did some bush trimming. Did we relocate one of the signs, Mark? I've lost track of the specifics. Elk Hills off of Carillion.
We've relocated a series of signs, and that area, it should be operating properly. I mean, we removed 2 trees. We've done a few things to improve, sight distance and functionality in that area. So.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Vintage Oak and Carillion. I mean, a lighted crosswalk might be good, but I just find that to be a really dangerous crossing. It just has gotten more and more busy. Out walking those neighborhoods, I hear constantly that kids are crossing those streets. It's not safe. I mean, but I hope we're not stopping at just a lighted crosswalk, there, that we really still need to move toward some other kind of slowing. When you used to go from Simmerhorn all the way to Carillion and Walnut, the speed that people are driving just seems to increase because there's no stopping between that turn on to Simmerhorn and all the way down, and there's nothing slowing people down. And it's just, I know I'm out walking that area, and I get really nervous crossing the street, and I can't imagine if it was a child that was distracted, what could happen on that stretch of road.
Well, you do raise a good point, and in fact, one of our concerns, the lighted crosswalks do get drivers' attention, and particularly if you're coming around curves or up over a hill like at the gulch there near the park, it can wake you up to the fact that there are people that have activated it. Our concern is probably only about 1/3 of the pedestrians using them take the time to push the button. And so there's a lot of wasted opportunity there it's a safety device, but like a seatbelt, if you don't click it, it doesn't do you any good. In this case, if you don't click the button, all the advance warning in the world doesn't wake the drivers up if you don't activate them. So we are looking at that. Chris is leaning in towards his mic. We've got a couple developments, River Oaks Unit 3, that we're talking with the developer about. In our master plan, we do plan at the intersection you spoke of to put eventually either a 4-way stop as an interim situation or augment that with a signal as traffic conditions warrant. And we're also looking at possibly another one further to the south. I don't know if, Chris, if you were...
So maybe we need to do some community education about pushing the button after we get them in. I'm serious, because I didn't realize you had to push a button. And I'm walking it. I walked that one that's across from the park, and I didn't realize there was a button to push.
Well, Steve is correct that that intersection in particular was recently identified to have some sort of improvement. Staff, we haven't identified the long-term solution for that specific intersection. We're under the process of investigating it. And I think one of the things we do want to look at is Carillion Boulevard as a whole. So I think we are talking about that now, trying to figure out what works best for everybody in the long run, not only at that intersection, but Carillion Boulevard in general. So we're in the process of exploring that possibility.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay, Mark, do you want to move to approve that then?
I move to approve E4, please.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. And now we're on to the rest of the information consent calendar. Donna, would you please read the other 7 items?
Minutes of the regular meeting of December 20th, 2016. Receive and file warrants. Ordinance number 2017-01, repealing Chapter 2.80 of the Galt Municipal Code regarding the Relocation Appeals Board. Item 5, Ford Fusion vehicle replacement. Item 6, Capital Improvement Program status update, October 1st to December 31st, 2016. Item 7, Strategic Plan update. Item 8, Treasurer's Report for period ending November 2016.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
Move to remain in consent.
Second?
Second.
Call for the vote, please, Donna.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson? Aye. Mayor Powers?
Aye, all approved, 5-0. Okay, now we're to schedule, we're going to go to G3 first, please, the Tiny Smiles race fee waiver request. Armando, that would be you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. That sounds pretty good. Good afternoon. Thank you for moving this forward. Rick Kieser actually has to go to work this afternoon, so it's great timing. The Tiny Smiles organization has submitted a special events application for their 5th annual Tiny Smiles Run in memory of Tiny Kieser. The annual races are held in an effort to spread awareness for child heart diseases. Monies raised from these events are donated to the care and support of those infants affected and their families. After reviewing the application, it was determined that the cost for traffic control services and community center rental totaled $3,785. The cost for these races is more expensive than in past races that this council has approved, in that there are 4 races in this Tiny Smiles race: a 5K, 10K, half marathon, and a kids fun run. Just to give you an example, the IDC cost was $2,900, and the best 5K was about $1,000. In accordance with the Galt Municipal Code 9.38.040, prior to the issuance of a permit, the applicant shall execute an agreement to reimburse the City of Galt for all costs and expenses incurred by the City of Galt as a result of the event. In the past, this was done with an agreement by trading sponsorship and advertising for the Galt market in lieu of payment for traffic services. While Tiny Smiles is a good and worthy cause, staff does not believe that advertising for the Galt market prior and during this event has had a significant impact. Staff is requesting payment of $3,785 from Tiny Smiles organization to provide traffic control for their event. So the recommendation is to consider the request from Tiny Smiles to waive the $3,785.32 fee for traffic control provided by the Galt Police Department, Public Works, the rental of the Littleton Community Center for the Tiny Smiles runs. I'd be glad to answer any questions for you, but I also know that we have the founder of the races, Rick Kieser, here in the audience if you'd like to ask him some questions also.
Council?
Armando, has this item been budgeted? I mean, was this budgeted during the budget year?
I do not believe it has been.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Council?
Has there, because I've read both the letters, or the report and the letter, has there been any analysis that identifies objectively what the specific monetary benefits are to the community?
No, there is not.
So we don't know what revenues would be generated as a result of this?
We talked about some tax revenues, how it would relate to this, bringing in the people from the outside, and I think Emily could answer that a little clearer.
So as you know, the city's share of sales tax is 1%. So if we're looking at a $3,700 cost, let's round it off there, you would need to multiply that times 100 to figure out how much in gross sales would need to happen in order for the city to achieve $3,700. And that's so $370,000. So you would need $370,000 in gross sales in order for the city to get $3,700.
That's to break even.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any money from Tiny Smiles that does go back into the city of Galt? Or does it just, where does all the...
I would invite Rick up to answer that question.
I think I spent $365,000 at El Rodeo, so we just need another $5,000. The money goes to children with congenital heart defects, to both research and patient support. And so if there are children, and there have been, I think, 4 or 5 others that we have given money to help support them. So directly, no. We also placed a $1,500 AED at the Chabola Center that was donated through Tiny Smiles. So there are things that happen here in the community because of Tiny Smiles and because of the event. I don't know that we're bringing in $370,000, but I know that in speaking to Comfort Inn and several of the restaurants, that money does go up. People spend stuff, but I have no idea how much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Gene, or
Mayor?
you
Yeah, if I
looking
can
to
say just a
something?
few words on, events, and events inherently are, bring people to the community, and, they hopefully spend, their dollars in sales tax, property tax, I guess, the litmus test, and we, the city help funding, different events. Is it a public benefit? Is it, how's it benefiting, the entire community? We do have kind of a partnership with Shop Local, and I've asked them to kind of put together what events they're putting on throughout the year, so we can try and get ahead of the budget events that kind of pop up during the year, and then they come and ask for fee waivers or events that we haven't budgeted for. So we're always trying to look internally into our budget and say how do we cover this, because if we take the money from one area, then something may not get done that we've already taken a look at. So there's a lot of things to weigh with these types of events. I guess getting information and trying to pre-plan these through our budget process is real important for staff. Staff is working on, the council asked us to work on a ordinance, kind of visit our event ordinance to come back and hopefully kind of outline some of this criteria within that ordinance that the council can take a look at and provide a little bit more policy direction when we address these types of things.
Because I think some of the concern is these things come up after the budget's been made, and they keep coming up and coming up. So maybe if we had a process that we could at least consider at the beginning of each year and come to an agreement with,
And kind of stepping back to about 2011, I pulled some old staff reports, and the Shop Local, was kind of the organization to do that, where the council appointed 2 council members, to that committee. The committee's supposed to put together kind of a budget, what their events are for the year, get that approved by the chamber, because it's a partnership with the chamber and with the city, and try and focus events on an annual basis through that organization. These other events that kind of pop up throughout the year kind of catch us off guard a little bit, 'cause,
Right.
We're not sure. Typically organizations, if they're planning these events, and they're again, I haven't seen budgets and kind of try and quantify those benefits to the city. It is very difficult. It's
Sure.
Can I also add, I think there were at least 2 years where we were on the city's budget. I think when Jason Bierman was the city manager, it was when we had started the race. And so I think for 12 and 13, we were in the budget. I don't know.
No, actually, what it was Jason approved it. It didn't come before
in
the
advance.
council.
Because
the council had given him that authority to do that.
Understood.
I think Tiny Smiles is a wonderful organization. It's a worthwhile cause. But we need to start looking at all of these events. And one of the things that I've said, it's generating income for donations and we just got to quit looking at, organizations need to quit looking at the city to fund these things or to assist in funding these things, because it's not part of our budget process. We do a community grant program. If we need to come back, if council needs to come back and look at that, increase that so that we budget for these things. But just, we throw the budget off every time, and it seems to be that it's increasing and increasing, that organizations are coming in asking us for waivers, or asking us to donate. When it's not, when we have other needs. I mean, we had a flood this week. Last week we spent, had to end up emergency spending, what I understand, probably about more than $8,000 on sand. I mean, that sort of stuff comes up. That, as a city function, we have to do. So if we keep spending all of our little reserve that we have set aside for kind of those things on other events, then I don't think we're serving the citizens well. And I just, at this point, I mean, I think that Tiny Smiles Race is a wonderful thing. I think the city should support it, but I think that Tiny Smiles needs to pay for the cost of holding the event here.
Mr. Winkley, do we have the costs on our sandbagging and all that? I threw out a number earlier to.
Yeah, the last number, we're in that ballpark. It's been a moving target because we keep having to get more sand and more sandbags. We've elected to go ahead and leave it open with rain coming, but we're probably going to be before we're done in the $10,000 range.
I mirror and agree with what Councilman Hewer said. But at the same time, I think you also have to evaluate, and again, I think Tiny Smiles is a great organization. I've been to the event several times. But I think you have to look and see, is this a legitimate and proper expenditure of public funds? Does it benefit, the actual resident here? And I think that is the test, and that's what's identified in the report. It has to be to the benefit of the taxpayer, because they are the ones that are actually paying the bill. So I think in addition to, the budgetary issues, you have to actually look at what is the public benefit, and does it meet that test? And in this case, it does not appear to meet that test. Although it's a great organization and it does a lot of good for certain individuals, but not necessarily the public in Galt. So.
And as a council member, I don't know, direction to staff, we need to come up, when these things come before us, and Rick, it puts us in a position of looking like, we're here to represent the entire community, and I think when these things come forward, it puts us in a position of looking like we're not supporting this race. And it's not that we don't support the race, it's just that I think that taxpayers' money shouldn't be used to do that. There's just not a big enough benefit to our entire community, to the portion of our community.
And on that note, that I'm trying to find a compromise here. On that note, that we are going to be working on it next year, is there any way that maybe this time you can meet us halfway with some of the, because,
If necessary, yes.
because then I think then that shows that both groups are contributing, and, we don't want to start, like Lori said, but we need to keep an eye on our budget too, and you're used to us doing it, so maybe if we could, meet each other halfway this time and realize that maybe next year things are going to be different. That's a suggestion I have.
Well, the other thing that I've asked for in these kind of events that is not included with this, and I know it's not a requirement that people provide it to us, but when we're using taxpayers' money to fund, the city money to fund these events, can we see some sort of a budget? Do we know, is this event generating, we have no concept of how much money these events generate for their events. Can they afford to pay the fees? Can they not afford to pay the fees? We never receive that kind of information. And we have events in town that raise money that could afford those fees. I mean, we have a lot of maintenance that needs to be done on our facilities. The Littleton Center, one of the things is this event's being using the Littleton Center. The Littleton Center has deferred maintenance needs that are huge. And unless we start charging for the use of the facility, we're never going to be able to generate the money to do the repairs on these buildings. And we're going to lose them due to neglect. And we just can't responsibly do that. And that's one of the reasons why I just really believe that this is an event that the fee waiver should be denied.
Well,
in response to the mayor's proposal, I'm really kind of lean towards what Councilmember Hewer is saying. However, when you look at the list of costs, there's only one soft cost that is not an actual monetary cost, and that's the rental of the facility. It's $500. The rest of these are direct monetary costs to the city. These are salaries that we're paying, whether overtime or straight time. So I don't know that the city should incur those costs as it relates to this. If anything, I would be, amiable to waiving the $500 fee, which is an actual soft cost, understanding that it doesn't help in the area of deferred maintenance, but I think until we get this policy on board, I think that's a reasonable accommodation at this point, but I don't think the city should actually pay salaries for an event.
It's overtime salaries.
Exactly, that doesn't have a direct benefit to the community and to the taxpayers.
I would agree with that compromise.
Chief, is that actually an overtime salary? Are we calling people in for that event, or are we using non-duty officers?
No, they're all overtime.
Thank you.
We don't have enough on-duty officers.
I tend to lead towards, given the general idea here from council, I kind of lean towards what the mayor's saying. But I do have one question. Since we're going here on this $8,000 to $10,000 on sand, and we'll use this as an example, is all of that being used in the city? Or we have people from the county coming in and doing it?
We don't know. I have my suspicions that a lot of it is leaving the city limits. What percentage, we're not there spending overtime salaries to keep track and then following vehicles to see where they actually go.
What areas of town have been flooded where sandbags were required?
There are areas that I think people had legitimate threats or concerns or have low-lying backyards, and so they're putting them outside their back patio doors and things. We don't know because we're not looking over their fence to see, what's
Delaney
going on.
Delaney subdivision.
It is.
All sandbagged.
Yeah, it is.
What is Delaney?
Something that's difficult to track without spending more funding to try to police it.
I had to sandbag my mother's home, and we still ended up with water in the house.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'd make a motion that we waive the rental fee on the Littleton Center, but that the direct costs for law enforcement, that those costs that we request at Tiny Smiles event race pay those costs.
Second.
Is this where you make an amendment if you want? I'd like to make it that we divide it in half this year, but to be prepared possibly next year. So that would be my motion.
I can second that.
Question. How much money is raised by Tiny Smiles? We have no concept of what revenue is generated
At this event or just in general?
at this event.
This event, we probably bring in about $15,000, but roughly 10 of that goes away to costs. So we generate $5,000. Most of that is given away. We usually hold on to about $1,000 to prepare for the upcoming race. We have raised over $50,000. This is just one of a couple of events that we do.
I'm sorry, Rick, to keep putting you on the spot.
okay.
But the 10,000, what does the 10,000 go to if you're having an event and you make 15, but 10's got to go?
We spend, we're doing our best to make a professional race. It is not just a community event. We want to attract people from the outside of all abilities to come to our community. It's a great running community. It's flat. The overpass is a hill. So that's fantastic, especially at mile 13. However, we spend money on medals, shirts, drinks, goo, stuff. There are just a lot of things that high-quality runners demand when they're going to be here. They don't want a cotton T-shirt. They want an expensive shirt.
Okay, so we've got a couple of motions. Which one do we start with? I'm kind of confused, I'm sorry.
Mayor, start with the second motion, the amendment, which is to waive half of the cost, half of 3,785.
Okay, so who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, so could we call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer,
No.
Councilmember Campion,
No.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Powers.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Sorry to cause problems.
No problem.
Okay, where are we? K1. K1, which is the appointment of The Galt Parks and Recreation Commission, Donna?
This is actually an appointment to be made by Council Member Campion. Brought it back from the December 20th meeting. I still have only received 2 applications, Christopher Smith and Ralph Cortez, and I believe Ralph Cortez is in the audience. So it's at your pleasure.
Thank you. And I know both the applicants, I think pretty well. I know one quite a bit longer than the other. I did come to the conclusion that I believe that Chris would do a good job. He's served there before. Would like to reappoint Chris Smith.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go back to regular council.
Okay. Give me a minute. Okay, well, now we're on subject F1, the extension of urgency ordinance number 2/1613, imposing a moratorium on all commercial marijuana land uses and all marijuana cultivation. Mr. Rudolph.
Good evening, or good afternoon again, Mayor and council members. On December 20th, the City Council adopted an initial 45-day urgency ordinance, and upon the adoption of that ordinance, it prohibited all commercial marijuana land uses and all marijuana cultivation within the city. This ordinance was adopted in response to recent state law changes, in particular Prop 64. When you adopt an urgency ordinance, as I indicated, it's good for 45 days, which takes it till February 3rd. There's an opportunity to extend urgency ordinances 2 times, subject to public notice and providing a report of any action taken from the initial adoption of the ordinance up until the date of the extension. So a public notice has been published for today's consideration of an extension of the ordinance. There is a report in your packet which indicates what action has been taken since the initial adoption, which is pretty limited since it's only a 45-day period, but we published the report in compliance with state law. So the action before you today is to extend the urgency ordinance for an additional 10 months and 15 days, which would take the ordinance in place until December 20th of this year. This would give the city an opportunity to further study the issue of commercial marijuana uses, decide whether or not they are appropriate for our community. If so, which of those commercial uses are appropriate. Also, it would give us an opportunity to see what kind of regulations are imposed by the state. And their regulations are required to be in place by the end of the year. The other element is to give us an opportunity to further explore whether this city desires to regulate marijuana cultivation, and if so, to craft those regulations and to put them in place. If you adopt the extension today, it does not necessarily mean that it needs to be in place for an additional 10 months and 15 days. That's the maximum timeline. If we're able to make a decision on either of those issues before the 10 months and 15 days runs out, we can put the new ordinances in place and then terminate the moratorium that is enacted by this extension.
Does this mean, I'm sorry, were you finished?
I just want to indicate that this would be a public hearing, so you would need to open a public hearing and take any public testimony. And the extension does require a 4/5 vote of the city council to enact. Happy to answer any questions.
Now I forgot what I was going to ask. So does this mean that you guys will be working on it in case the state comes to a conclusion before the end of the year?
So the next item that we have on or a later item on the agenda today is to continue our discussion locally as far as what type of regulations the city council desires to see this enacted relating to cultivation, relating to commercial uses of marijuana, and also to the use of marijuana in public places. And so what this extension does is it really just maintains the status quo on cultivation and on commercial uses, which means no commercial uses, no cultivation until this body decides what permanent regulations you desire to be put in place. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Mr. Rudolph,
Yes, ma'am.
but the 6 plants indoors, allowed indoors, we can't pass an ordinance or put a moratorium on that sort of cultivation, correct? Once the law was passed, it's legal at a state level to grow 6 plants inside a structure.
Well, that is not my opinion. My opinion is that we do have a period of time in which to enact regulations, because what Prop 64 said is it did say that you can grow indoors subject to regulations. The city has the ability to enact regulations. We obviously didn't have those regulations ready to go on November 9th. And so my opinion is that we have a reasonable period of time in which to maintain the status quo, which is no cultivation, so that we can come up with those regulations and put them in place. What is a reasonable period of time? You know, I think that the farther we go out on this particular ordinance, I mean, an urgency ordinance can be in place for up to 2 years. I think if we were to leave it in place for 2 years, the defensibility of the ordinance becomes a little bit more challenging. But I think if we leave it in place for a short period of time, continue our discussion today, get some direction from this body, and come back within the next month or two with regulations, that it is in fact enforceable.
With the I'm sorry, were you finished?
Mm-hmm.
With the regulation, on this other part then, is the regulations just on the indoor use, or are we going to be discussing all of the use?
So the City Council has the option to ban outdoor use or to regulate it. On indoor cultivation, not use, indoor cultivation, you cannot totally ban indoor cultivation. You can choose to regulate it if you so desire.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, wait, we have public. This public is not till the next one.
Public comment.
Oh, open it to public comment. Is there anyone that would care to, have you filled out a speaker sheet? Oh, would you bring it up, please?
Yeah, this is just on the extension of the.
Oops, open. Public hearing is open.
I was gonna speak on the next one, on the Prop 64.
Right.
The second one for this one as well. Okay, let me just do it real quick.
No, we can just add it to this, okay?
Let me,
Just wants to talk on both of them. Okay, so Mr. Chapman, you want to come up first?
Sure.
And could you state your name, please, and if you live within the city of Galt?
My name's Roy Chapman, and you guys are putting up a ban that we just voted on through our state for us to have it legal in our backyards. You know, like I told you when I was here last time, I'm tired of being a criminal. You know, I'd like to be able to do what I want in my backyard and not have no problems with it. And the law doesn't state that you can ban outdoor grows. You can't ban indoor grows. We can have 6 plants, you know. And on your comment that you should make a ban anyway, and just, we'll do it anyhow, that's wrong too. That's not a good way to look at things, you know? You don't even give it a chance. You're banning it before it ever starts. You know nothing about what's gonna happen to it. You're speculating that it's gonna bring crime in, it's gonna make more problems, but you don't know. It's only speculation. So why ban it before you give it a chance? Why not give it a chance to see what happens? And if it doesn't turn out the way you want it, you still have your embankment that you have going on. It's not gonna stop it from there, but you need to give it a chance at least to look at it. You're not even looking at what's gonna happen. How do you know what's gonna happen if you don't give it a chance? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, Adam, I'm sorry, your last name's?
Gallity, sorry.
Gallity.
I just had knee surgery.
Don't rush then, just take your time.
Yeah, I wasn't really, I'll elaborate on the next one. I wasn't really gonna say much on this one, but just, regarding the ban that you were gonna put in place, the, ban going through December of this year, and then saying you could actually enact it for another 2 years. I don't think that's, reasonable at all. I believe that you can come up with regulations within the next 6 months, honestly. I don't see why that should be an issue at all. And along with the state guidelines with Prop 64 going and acting, starting in the beginning of 2018, I don't see why we can't be in line with the state as well. So that's just my personal opinion. And in regards to the indoor grow, the 6 plants indoor compared to outdoor, I understand that some people don't. I think the main reason is the smell that they don't like, and that's only for an 8-week period. Not even that, really a 6-week period. Towards the end of harvest, kind of like October area. So really, in the time frame of things, it's only a 6-week period and a 6-month grow season. I don't know why you would want to enforce indoor growing over outdoor growing, because indoor growing poses so many more threats to fire, power, electricity, people not running their lights properly, stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot more hazardous to grow indoors than it is to plant a seed in the ground outdoors, which I don't understand that part of it either. So in my opinion, it would be safer for the community to grow your 6 plants outdoors and just deal with the smell for the 6 weeks, rather than to try to set up an elaborate indoor grow where it costs you thousands of dollars. You have to spend hundreds of dollars on your electricity bills, and you have the possibilities of fires and all the other stuff. So that was just what I was going to say on this matter alone. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Randy Kirkhoff.
I don't know if there was any questions, or I don't know how this works. Is that good?
That's good. Thank you very much, and take your time getting back to your seat. Randy Kirkhoff. Randy Kirkhoff, do you want to speak on this? Okay.
So how y'all doing today? I did want to speak on this. I've actually been on the state board for the cultivation of marijuana for 9 years. I really believe in having some kind of medication that isn't some kind of pill that can give us, ulcers, bleeding, whatever else. I'm a surviving patient of stage 2 cancer. I will tell you, I have an 8-year-old kid and a 4-year-old kid that I take to school every day. I wouldn't be here because none of the medication, none of the radiation, none of it worked at all. That's the whole reason I got onto the state board of cultivation of marijuana. Now that is on Florin Road and down there. It's one of the greatest things I think that we've ever done, but I don't think the city's ever looked at that. I think you need to, excuse me, my larynx isn't the best. I think we really need to look at the cultivation for people that can't afford medication. There's people that can't afford, and as you know, Obamacare doesn't cover everything. There's things that can't be healed by the medication that we're given. 90% of the pills are made with oil. They're not even made with something that's made from a plant. We're getting it straight from the oil companies, and that's not what they're telling you. This is something that we can cultivate outside, that we can actually basically keep healthy. My grandfather was here for another 10 years because I was able to get a state card and be here for him and be here to where he could live in his own house, not in a state home, not in a, basically one of these convalescent homes. I was able to go through the state and get all of my paperwork. I think we need to look at people that live in this town. There's over probably 75% of the people in this town that are recovering from something or recovering from some kind of cancer that this could actually help, but they can't afford the medication or the radiation treatments that they want, but they can afford a seed. They can afford a clone. They can afford something that can maybe get them here for 5 more years with their kids. That's all I care about. I got people that are in my life. I've been in the business. We actually own a business in Orville. We pay taxes. You guys really need to look into the taxes you guys can make. It's ridiculous. The actual expenditures that you're going to spend against the actual marijuana plant are bigger than the actual positive money that can be generated for your city. Now, I'm not just talking, the big rows that, everyone's scared about. And yes, I can see the crime that could come with it. But if we regulate it and we're all talking together and we work with the police and we work with our cities, I think we have something that could be great. I think we have something that could actually heal and give people another decade or 20 years. Again, I'm in remission and I was stage 2. I mean, I went through radiation. I did all those treatments. I did everything you guys wanted me to do, and the only thing that worked was the marijuana. Now, I'm not saying, I think the 21-year-old thing is great. I think we should do that. I think we should regulate it just like, cigarettes. I believe in that. But I don't think we should make a moratorium for our city. I don't think we should take it away and make these people criminals. I know everyone on this board has at least got one person in their life that are here for another 3 years, 4 years, heck, maybe a decade. Maybe they're in remission. I know you guys know someone that is still a criminal in this town because of this moratorium that is set. All I'm trying to say is, I don't want to lose my 8 and 4-year-old. I'm not a drinker. I don't do anything else. I'm not even on one pill. I got off of Vicodin. That's amazing, okay? All I'm saying is I think we need to look at it differently, maybe not put the moratorium on. Like this man said, I mean, maybe he can't afford to grow indoors. Maybe it's another, I mean, one light alone is $110 a month on your electric bill. One light. That's just one. Okay, and that's not even a 1,000 watt. A 1,000 watt light is $145 a month. For 6 plants, you at least need one of those, right? Then you're thinking about all the water. You guys are all metered. Well, that's an extra excess amount for that person to do. So if we just had the 6, maybe even go with the 3, maybe a 2 limit on outdoor, I think that would actually help a lot more people. And like my friend said, I mean, that causes electrical fires. People are trying to hide this stuff. We don't need to hide it anymore. I mean, obviously our state has recognized it. I think as a city we could recognize it too. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you very much.
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Okay, are there any more, Donna?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any comments from council member, vice mayor?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but Prop 215 is not affected by Prop 64, correct? People who have medical or the conscientious act for marijuana has not been affected by this?
That's
They can
correct.
still use them,
Prop 64 does not change Prop 215.
so it does not affect medical use at all?
No, it does not.
Thank you.
Are we talking indoor or outdoor? Any other comments?
Just for clarification, Steve, the Prop 64 allowed for 6 indoor grows, correct?
So what Prop 64 provides is that a person over the age of 21 may cultivate up to 6 plants. Not more than 6 plants may be cultivated within a single-family residence or upon the grounds of that single-family residence. So if you have multiple people living in a residence, it's still limited to 6 plants. The city has the option to ban outdoor grows.
Okay.
If you ban the outdoor growing, then there's the legal ability to grow all of the 6 plants indoors, subject to the city's ability to regulate.
On the other proposition that he was just talking about, though, but does that say you can grow your own plants if you have a medical card? It just says you can go to a place and get it, right?
It does not give the absolute right to cultivate marijuana. As we currently have in place for medicinal marijuana, you can, at least prior to Prop 64, you could ban the cultivation of all marijuana.
Okay. And then just one other thing I want to say is we extended this to look into this for 3 months, and I really don't like personally now waiting till the end of the year. It's said that we could do it before then, but the wording says until, that we oppose the moratorium until December 20th, and doesn't set well with me, but it's just me.
Well, that's the outside, before you would have to do another extension, or, as Steve was saying, as long as we give him direction, I think he plans on addressing this within the next several months.
Well, that's why I'd like to change it, because it says until, so I'd like to change that up to or something, and, I don't think we should wait till the end of the year to figure out if people can grow it in their backyard or not.
I don't think that's staff's position, and I think that's up to council. I mean,
Okay.
the problem is,
Okay.
if we only extend it to, say, 3 months, Is it based on the number of extensions or the duration of the extension?
So there's two limitations. First, you can only extend an urgency ordinance twice.
Okay.
The maximum extension the maximum time for the first extension is 10 months and 15 days. The next extension is a maximum of a year. If you chose to do each extension for 1 month, then that would be the end. You would not be able to extend that urgency ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
Another option, if the council's uncomfortable with the length, is you could put this one in place, the urgency ordinance in place for the 10 months and 15 days. And then after we have our discussion and decide how you want to proceed with the regulation of the cultivation under the next agenda item, you could give direction as to when you desire the ordinance to come back. And I will obviously do everything within my power to do that. But I think that to limit the timeline on the extension before we've completed our discussion, and the council has indicated what type of regulation you're looking for, makes it a little bit problematic from my perspective. The other part is, there's two parts to this. There's the prohibition on commercial uses, and there's a prohibition on the cultivation. You can modify either of those. You could extend the prohibition on commercial uses. You could extend the prohibition on outdoor cultivation only, or you could extend the prohibition on outdoor and indoor cultivation. So there's some options available for you if there's one element of this ordinance that you're not comfortable with.
Which is my concern, is that I think that there are members of the community, there are voters who passed the 6 plants. And for us to continue to extend and make criminals out of people who are law-abiding in every other part of their lives, and not allow them to move forward with what statewide has said, with what the propositions, many propositions pass that I don't agree with, but they take effect. And I think that there comes a certain point about my reason for voting yes the last time was to give staff time. I think staff do need time. I think Steve needs time. I attended the League of Cities with Steve and Jean, their presentation on Prop 64 and the marijuana. And it does sound like there's still a lot of unknowns, and they're waiting for state regulation and looking to be, we don't want to be the test cases. We don't want to be somebody's test case of testing it. And there's a whole battery of attorneys standing out there waiting to pick a city, pick a place to be a test case. Galt doesn't need to be a test case. We can't afford it. We end up being a bad test case for everybody. But I would like to see us move quickly on figuring out what we're going to do. I absolutely agree that we need to continue the ban on the commercial. That needs to continue through the end of the year until, at least through the end of the year, so that we can come up with our own ordinances and regulations. But the 6 plants and the personal cultivation for personal use, whether it's medical or recreational, we need to move quickly on deciding what we're going to do and allowing and giving the community direction, because the community wants to know what we're planning on doing. So that's my concern, is that I want at least that portion of it brought back as quickly as possible.
So we can direct that?
Well, later on in the agenda.
No, it's later on, but it's just,
agenda.
but that's just when we talk about this urgency ordinance, that's my problem with it going on until the end of December.
I think it's like Steve has said. We probably won't address the commercial issue, or maybe we'll give direction to ban it. I don't know when we get to that item. But I think that if we extend the ordinance as recommended by staff, and then the next agenda item, we can break it out and talk about those portions of the ordinance that we want back sooner or later than others. You know, the public places and smoking in public places, I think that needs to be effective as soon as possible. That's my personal opinion. I think prohibition on commercial activity, I think we maintain that. And I think the one that everybody's concerned about is, okay, how soon can we address the issue of outdoor grow or indoor grow with regulation? Well, I think that's going to require discussion amongst us to determine whether it's going to be allowed outdoor or if it's just going to be indoor grows. So it isn't necessarily staff's position, but I think what they're trying to do is allow sufficient time for us to come to some form of a decision. So I think that I don't see that there's any harm in extending it as recommended. It only gives us time to come to those conclusions, to give them direction.
Okay.
I agree.
I mean, so on this one, on this item, I see this one is, you know, this is pretty standard. You always do an extension of 10 months, 15 days. When we get to the next one, we can give direction on when we want the ordinance is completed.
I would agree with that.
So are you okay with that, or do you want to talk on the next part or this part?
I just want to say one thing. So you said you can do 2 extensions on the emergency.
Come up to the mic.
Mayor, can you come up to the mic if you're going to speak?
My first time, I apologize. So you said you can do 2 extensions on the emergency ordinance. So this extension that you would be doing today is extension number 1?
That's correct.
Okay, so.
And we don't plan on getting to number 2.
What's that?
We don't plan on getting to a
Okay, well, that's fine. You can say that, but a year's time from now, if you're still not ready, you can extend it again, and then now we're into 2018. So, anyways, so why couldn't we do 2 6-month extensions? Why couldn't you do a 6-month emergency extension if you still haven't come around to everything? Do another 6-month emergency extension, so that way you're in line with the state of California going forward in 2018.
Well, the council certainly has that discretion to extend the ordinance for less than the 10 months and 15 days.
I'm just asking the question, is that a possibility that we can do today rather than doing it to December 10th? I mean, I know you're saying there's not going to be an extension too, but you're saying there's still the possibility, so.
Yeah, well, that will be sort of up to us to decide, and we could take that into
Okay,
consideration.
well, it's just
Yeah.
the public's opinion that, I mean,
Right,
just like you
correct.
said, you know, you're looking to move forward as fast as possible, and if we can't figure something out in a year's time, the state has to figure something out in a year's time. Why can't the city of Galt figure something out in a year's time?
Yeah, we have been discussing that, and
So that's just my concern. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Hold on a sec, your staff.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any more discussion, council? Do I hear a motion or a motion?
Motion, staff's recommendation, 10
Second.
months, 10 months, 15 days.
Okay, Donna, it's been moved by Kurt and seconded by Mark. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
I'm going to say aye, hoping that we'll get this done a little sooner. So it passes 5-0.
Thank you. Good at 11, right?
All right.
Unless you want to go.
Now we're back to, it's me, City Council Office, my discretionary funds, and I want to approve allocating $215 to Jeremy Nolan for his Eagle Scout project, which is out at the park, the arbor he's doing. $200 to the Venture Troop 119 for the 2017 National Scout Jamboree. They've been working a couple of years trying to get all the money for this, and this is the first time that girls are going, so that's why I'm giving them some money. And $100 to the Galt High School cheer program, because at the Heritage Day Festival, they were selling cupcakes, but then told they couldn't sell anything, so I told them I didn't take all the cupcakes, but I told them I'd give them some.
They ran the kids on for hours.
Yeah, they were out there forever. So I'd like the council to approve those, please.
Discussion?
Okay?
So, you know, it comes back to the same discussion that we were having earlier regarding, in my feeling about when we're spending taxpayers' money, and you know, we've had lots of discussions about the discretionary funds.
Lots.
They need to, my understanding of discretionary funds is that in looking at the city ordinance regarding it, and is that it needs to benefit the community at large. And I absolutely understand, I agree that the Eagle Project, it's being done in the community garden, and that has a benefit to the community at large. I think that it's something that maybe as a city, we would have wanted to enhance the community garden anyway, and now we have basically a volunteer coming forward as this Eagle Project to do that. But the National Scout Jamboree and the high school cheer program, both worthwhile organizations, benefits and, you know, some youth in our community. I absolutely, you know, support both the organizations and the fact of the mission of what they're doing and what it does for youth. But it's not an appropriate, in my opinion, expenditure that benefits the city at large. It benefits a very limited number of students, of youth, and it doesn't benefit the community at large. So as much as I, you know, wished I could support it, I'm not going to support the Venture Troop and the Galt High School Cheer Program in receiving taxpayers' funds. It's a
Okay.
gift of funds. I mean, I absolutely understand, Mary Lou, that you might want to donate to the cheer program, but that's not a use of city money.
Well, and, you know, we've got different opinions on that, and thank you for yours. And do I have a motion to approve?
Move recommended action.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Cruz, second by Lamson. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
No?
Councilmember Campion?
No.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Okay, moving along to another hot topic, the regulation of marijuana. That's you, Gene.
Mayor Powers, members of the council, good evening. Gene Palazzo, city manager.
Your person.
And this is I guess, continuing our discussion here on, you know, marijuana. And I reflect a little bit back on being a city manager and kind of my role and responsibilities. You know, kind of building healthy communities is what I tell people when they ask me, you know, what my job is. The other part of my job is to assist the city council in making policy decisions so we can draft ordinances and implement things that benefit the community. Prop 64 certainly brings new policy and discussions, you know, to our cities and city councils. And looking back in when I started my career many years ago, marijuana was an illegal substance, and to possess, you know, or cultivate marijuana was a felony. And we've come a long ways, you know, since, you know, those times. And, you know, now that we have ordinances or propositions being passed in our state that allow the, you know, the grow of 6 plants, you know, within a residence. Statewide, you know, the vote on Prop 64 was 57% yes, 42% no. Countywide, it was 54% yes, 45% no. And then the city of Galt, it was 52% no with 48% yes. And just kind of give you, you know, kind of where our community's at, you know, within the state and the county. Many cities are now struggling in trying to decide how to implement Prop 64 and regulate, you know, the use of marijuana. None of us had that crystal ball, you know, going forward, trying to figure out, you know, our decisions that we make today, how they're going to impact our cities in the future. You know, one of the nice things about ordinances is that we can, you know, kind of reflect back, you know, 2 years from now. If we get some policy direction, it's not working out so good, we can always come back through that ordinance process and amend ordinances, you know, so we can, you know, kind of do some shifts. So tonight, you know, to, you know, further our discussions that we started at our December 20th meeting, we're going to have Chief Sockman and Mr. Arias assist in this presentation and kind of back up a little bit on, you know, staff's recommendation. You know, they're going to, you know, kind of walk you through and kind of give you some substantive reasons why staff is recommending what we're recommending. What I like to do, just for the public and for the council, very quickly, is walk you through the 3 components or 3 topics that are before the city council this afternoon for consideration. And, you know, we don't need to act on all three of those topics. You know, we're looking for, you know, the council direction. I'd like to break them up into three separate discussions. You know, I think it'd be easier as we walk through this to kind of get that policy direction from the council. But overall, in this presentation, we'll give you all three, kind of walk you through all three and then go back and discuss. The first topic.
Gene, if I could just interrupt you, there is a PowerPoint, but it's on the P drive, and I can't access the P drive from this laptop.
I don't see it on the P drive.
So I just trying to benefit the presenters here.
But, okay.
All right, so I don't have any access at
While
this
I
point.
finish up my discussion, can we get, if you can get to the P drive and see if you can find that?
It's locked out on his computer.
So let me finish my, walk you through my discussion. Hopefully we can get the PowerPoint. If not, we'll go from there. So, the three topics: use of marijuana in public places. The questions, before the city council are: does the city council desire to prohibit the use of marijuana in buildings and property owned, leased, or occupied by the city, on city streets, on sidewalks, and/or in parks and recreational areas? Staff direction or staff recommendation, to the council on this is to draft an ordinance clarifying that the use of marijuana is prohibited in buildings and property owned, leased, and occupied by the city, and specifying that public place includes city streets, sidewalks, parks, and recreation areas. Prepare modifications to other sections of the city code as necessary to be consistent with that direction. Topic 2 is marijuana cultivation. That's the topic that we had a little bit more discussion on earlier this afternoon. Questions on that? Does the city council desire to continue the ban on the outdoor cultivation of marijuana? Does the city council desire to regulate the indoor cultivation of marijuana? If so, does the city council desire to regulate with or without the issuance of a permit? Staff recommendation on that topic is to draft an ordinance continuing the ban on outdoor cultivation and allowing the indoor cultivation of up to 6 plants, subject to issuance of a permit. This ordinance would require review with the Planning Commission and then come back before the City Council. Topic 3 is commercial marijuana use. Does the City Council desire to ban all commercial use of marijuana? If not, the commercial uses is the City Council willing to allow? And currently, our staff recommendation is to extend the urgency interim ordinance, which we've done this evening, prohibiting all commercial marijuana activity, and further evaluate whether certain uses such as processing or testing facilities may be appropriate to allow, subject to issuance of a conditional use permit. So this evening, we can have, a discussion on if we move into the commercial marijuana uses, what do we look at? Is it a complete ban, or is there areas that, we may want to look at? That's going to take some time. Probably going to take, several months for us to kind of research that and figure out what other cities are doing. But right now, we do have that ordinance in place to ban that. So I'd like to turn this over to Chief Sockman and Mr. Arias for the rest of the presentation. Do we have our PowerPoint?
We'll still do a great job.
Okay.
So to start off with,
Thank you,
apologize
Gene.
for the slides. Of course, we'll figure out what happened to them later, but that doesn't help us now. But I think we can get our message across without the slides. So the first area of discussion is public places. The Prop 64 said that you cannot smoke in a public place, but what it didn't do is define what a public place is. So I think it's important for us, not only as a community, but as, also from the police perspective on what a public place is, so that it gives our staff, our officers, our citizens the ability to know what is okay and what is not okay. So our recommendation is going to be that we adopt an ordinance clarifying what the public place is. And what we're recommending is that we define as a city, all city-owned buildings, city streets, sidewalks, parking areas, and park and recreation areas. Prop 64 already bans it in places where tobacco is prohibited, which is 1,000 feet from schools, daycare, youth facilities, and while driving in a vehicle. So that just adds to that. It gives us, like I said, it gives us a tool to have some sort of enforceability if in the event that we do see somebody smoking marijuana in a public place. It also, for our parks and our areas within the city, if I'm out there with my family and somebody chooses to smoke marijuana, which is now legal in the state of California for them to use marijuana, then kind of the message that we're saying is that, okay, do it in the privacy of your own home. But that's our position as staff, is to hopefully have council give us direction to adopt no smoking in public places and our recommendations for what a public place is. And then the next area that we're going to be talking about is cultivation. I'm going to start off simply by saying that there were some points made earlier and positions on cultivation. And from their perspective, they gave compelling arguments. And so now what my job is to give a compelling argument from my experience. And as Gene stated earlier, when you cultivated prior to this law, it was a felony. And now it's a culture change for all of us to try to now figure out and adapt to the new rules in the state of California. But what my experience is that when it's in public view, it becomes a public problem. The public problem is that it's the quality of life for our citizens. For those that aren't involved in growing marijuana or smoking marijuana, if you are in your backyard for the 6 to 8 weeks that it was discussed, that the smell happens, it is overwhelming. It is overwhelming for one backyard, let alone 3 or 4 or 5 in a row or in a specific neighborhood. That smell is overwhelming. And I promise you, if you've never smelled it, it can be so overwhelming if you have that many backyards that you will not go in your backyard and enjoy. You will not go out and have a barbecue in your backyard. So while we're going to be the ones that get the complaints, the police department, saying, this smell is so overwhelming, I can't enjoy myself. I can't let my kids go in the backyard. There's been a lot of talk about the crime and everything else associated in marijuana and cultivation in backyards. Those are all true, in my experience. I've seen shootings, I've seen thefts, I've seen home invasions. You know, I came from another city that's a lot more active than the city of Galt, but all those things do occur. And it was brought up earlier, well, how do you know that that's going to happen under Prop 64 when everybody can grow? But how do you know that it's not? That's the question, and we just don't know. So our position is, and I'm not going to steal Chris's thunder, he's got a lot more to this, but our position is that if because the law says to grow indoors, it's out of sight, it's out of mind. But if it's in the backyard, it will affect the quality of life of those that are not in smoking marijuana for whatever reason, whether it's medical, recreational, or what have you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Chief, and it's my good fortune to talk about the cultivation portion of this issue. Most of it has already been talked about, but I just want to, I have a couple issues and, you know, talk about it from a community development perspective. There is a current ban on the cultivation of marijuana, and it really stemmed from issues at a site where it was being grown, and one of the issues was the smell. So, you know, partly the reason that it's currently banned in the city is the smell that emanated from a specific property. So that is real. I mean, the smell is an issue.
Can I just ask you how many plants were on that? Because that was a huge backyard full of plants, correct?
It was a larger property with numerous plants. The exact number, I don't know.
I think it was more than 30 or 40 or 50. It was a huge amount.
But based on the new law, the city, you know, you've heard what that is that residents are allowed up to 6 plants. But the city now has options to consider in regulating it. So it is the city's perspective to regulate. You can ban all outdoor grows and regulate indoor grows. You can allow outdoor and indoor with regulation or without regulation. But the staff recommendation, I think you've heard that is, and that is to continue the ban on the outdoor grows but allow indoor grows. And we are recommending that you allow up to 6 plants to be grown indoors, and that could be in a primary residence as well as an outbuilding like a shed or other specific outbuilding. But again, the recommendation is ban outdoors and then allow the indoor grow up to 6. And there are a couple reasons why we recommend that. And, you know, again, this is a community development issue. One is the permit process. The building permit process basically provides for the public safety. And that's not only the general public outside of a specific residence, but also people in a specific residence or other structure, is to make sure that all building codes are adhered to. And you heard public testimony already from someone stating, you know, that there are potential issues with growing inside. So we think the permit and inspection process could help limit some of those impacts inside, or ensure that the code is met, but also make sure that basically you have the maximum number is being followed, and that also other items like making sure that, you know, that's the person who is the permittee also lives in the residence. So it gives us the ability to kind of see who and where they are growing it. Then from a planning perspective, I mean, the whole reason we have planning and zoning laws is basically to limit the impact of uses on neighbors. And if it is determined that, you know, this smell is an impact on neighbors, then it's within the city's right to regulate that. And so based on, you know, what we've known in the past from city experience and then others as well, you know, the smell has been shown to be a problem. So planning, they have other regulation on uses. It's, you know, noise ordinances, it's setbacks and building heights. All those codes are there to limit the impact of a specific use on your neighbors. So with that, our recommendation is to allow the indoor grow up to 6 plants, the indoor to be defined as primary structure as well as outbuildings, and then require a permit for that process. And that's all I have on the cultivation component. I believe the city attorney then was going to talk about the commercial component.
Can I ask another question? The outbuilding, could that be like a greenhouse, or does that have to have all the lights and all the electricity and all that stuff attached to it?
It could include a greenhouse. We have yet to define other structure, but that can be included.
Okay.
And it would seem logical.
Question. And I hear a lot of comment about the smell, but if you have an indoor grow, isn't there a requirement for some form of venting?
That would be included. You would believe that would be included in the regulation. And so in that sense, smell does play a factor. You know, so if it is vented straight up rather than through a side onto a neighboring uses, perhaps it's dissipated by going vertical rather than horizontal when being vented.
So this permitting process may involve some type of ventilation system to be installed as well?
The city can look at additional items to be included on the regulation. And looking at other cities and their regulation on grows when it was for medicinal purposes, there were other regulations put in, such as making sure there were no additional heat sources allowed for you know, growing of marijuana, and there were also then limits on height and things like that inside the house to make sure, you know, the plants don't choke out a room, so to speak. So the city can look at items specific to the permit process and development standards for it.
Yeah, I would be interested in seeing, because if it was contained within the structure, I guess no smell would escape. But if you had to have some sort of venting, then I don't know that you've defeated the purpose of an indoor grow versus an outdoor grow.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, one other comment on this smell. I think it's like anything else. If you've never smelled it, when there's multiple yards, then you can't really describe it. You can't really understand it, but it is overwhelming. The smell when the wind starts to blow across the backyards and stuff like that when you've got multiple yards. It's like the first time you smell a skunk. It's not the same, but it has some of the qualities. When we went out to the controlled burn with CSD, when they were burning that building, if you've never gone out to stand next to a burning building, you really don't truly appreciate what those firefighters do, smelling that smoke that they do. It is overwhelming. And so it's just a new experience, and I've seen it, I've smelled it, I've walked those neighborhoods, and you know, it's just really, really tough. It's going to be tough on the other neighbors. That's the whole point of the smell. And when we're talking about the venting, I'm no expert, but I would imagine that if it goes up through the top, then it'll dissipate in the air. But if it's right next to you while you're trying to barbecue, it's going to be a lot stronger. So.
Well, yeah, and, you know, I guess, you know, if it's under the provision of zoning, you could have setback requirements for plant placement. So it isn't adjacent to a fence. I mean, you know, I'm just trying to think, you know, I'm not convinced either way, but those are the types of regulations that I think you could look at. It might be a little bit difficult to enforce, but certainly those would address some of the immediate concerns. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I shudder to think how bad it would smell in a house with a couple of kids, a whole room with 6 plants in it, boom. I mean, we're talking about smell, and we're talking about,
Thank you very much. That's
I
all.
mean.
Hold on.
So outdoors a little easier, so.
Mayor, we got.
Do we want to discuss each one of these items, or do we want to?
Well, I'd like Mr. Rudolph to do,
Discuss
Mayor, if we could have Mr. Rudolph
I guess
just say a few words on
Yeah.
commercial, and I'll wrap it up.
Okay, I thought you were
presentation.
dividing into 3 because I thought you wanted to discuss each one while we were going along. So, okay, we'll do it.
Well, the apology again from me is that's part of the slide presentation is council
That's
action,
fine.
so that's
Okay.
next.
So I actually have very few words to say on commercial because of the fact that you've already adopted the extension of the ban. It's certainly on the agenda for discussion tonight, or this afternoon if you desire. But I think that the more pressing issues for the council to discuss today relate to the clarification of use in public places and the cultivation. So I don't have anything further to add on commercial uses.
Yeah. And Mayor, I'd just like to thank staff for putting this together, and you guys did a great job without the PowerPoint. Wrap that up good. I would recommend, to the council to, do, the discussions, break them out separately with the discussions and start with the use of marijuana in public places, and go through that, so get some staff direction and then head into cultivation.
Okay, well, first of all, we do have a speakers. Does anybody want to speak on this particular one? I think we had a couple of speakers. Adam, do you want to speak? And
Yes,
did you fill out a speakers? You have one too, right? Okay. All right. Okay, Adam, you can go first.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, just. All right, so I'm not sure where to start, but, I guess I'll just start with, addressing the smell, just because that's where we left off. So basically just what I've heard so far, and not to be just so blunt with it, but basically, so smell's going to allow us as a community to sit back and as California, and allow California to move forward with the largest boom since the tech industry, and keep us from moving forward and changing our mindset to this now legal plant. It's a plant. Okay, and it will be, mark my words, it's already the largest, and one of the largest industries in California. It's up there next to dairy. We live in an agriculture industry. So mark my words, it will be the largest industry since the tech boom. So I don't know why we would want to sit back just because everyone says it stinks. I'm sorry. Oh, it smells. I'm sorry. We're going to sit out and miss out on hundreds of thousands of tax dollars because it smells. And venting it, to your question, sir, venting it in a house, no, it doesn't. It doesn't change it if you vent it out the top or to the side. It doesn't change the smell. I've grown indoors. You vent it out no matter where. Your neighborhood smells. I've grown indoors. You grow the 6 plants, it stinks regardless. Your house stinks. You can't have company over because your house stinks. And that's with 6 plants. So and like you said, to your point, with the 6 kids, with the 6 plants and the kids in the house, not an ideal situation. So outdoors, water it once every 5 days compared to indoors where you're watering it a couple times a day. California's in a drought, less water, less electricity. I mean, in order to put a proper, I don't want to go off on a tangent. In order to put a proper grow room together with proper venting and charcoal filters and stuff like that, in order to decrease the smell so that way your community and stuff like that doesn't smell, and to make sure that your fire safety and if you were to get permits for that, you're talking $5,000 to $8,000 for the room just to get built. Okay, that you're not including lights or anything like that. You're just talking about making sure that all your wiring and everything else is all hooked up. And then you have to maintain that every single day because indoor growing is 10 times harder than outdoor growing. So you're putting it to a point where it is no longer feasible to grow your 6 plants indoors because it's just cheaper to go to the dispensary to buy it. But yet there's no dispensary available in Galt because there's a moratorium on them. So now you have to drive 30 minutes away. So you see where I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a trickle effect. So and all I hear is a smell, 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 smell. I know it stinks, sir. I understand that, but I mean, come on, realistically, you know? So, anyways, voting was 52 to 48. I mean, that was just our community. It won much larger in California as a whole, so I want to just base that. A lot of people voted no on it just because they were in the medical marijuana industry and that was going to affect their current business, so I want to really relate that. If everyone were to vote yes on that, including the people in the medical marijuana industry, it would have won by a landslide. But there were a lot of people in the medical marijuana industry that voted no because it was going to affect their current business. So, so it would have won by a larger number, just that's my opinion. All my notes on here from you guys are just about smell, honestly. Crime dealing with cultivation. You already have to deal with crime about, you know, dealing with cultivation, whether it be large scale, small scale, whatever. Right now, it's just an ordinance, so it's not really going to affect anything. It's not like you're running in there with the SWAT team to take down 6 plants. You know, you visit a house and you issue them a $50 ordinance. That's nothing big. So it's not like you're increasing much. And if you were to open a dispensary around here, I did a small number because I was a store manager at Safeway. I interviewed at one of the largest cannabis club industries for a couple of weeks over at Harborside in Oakland. And, you know, just to give you some numbers, they were going through $750,000 a week in product. So, you know, and that's equal to what I was running at Safeway at a store. So, I mean, that's a lot. That's nothing what Galt would be running through. But think of the tax revenue. If you were to just place a flat tax of 10%, your minimum transaction per day is $50, even though it would probably be higher than that because of prices and stuff like that. You go through 100 transactions a day, which is so low that that's incredible. I mean, that's just way low. So you're talking $500 a day, $3,500 a week, $14,000 a month, $168,000 a year. Prop 64 says that has to go to schools, it has to go to education, it has to go to law enforcement, and it has to go to youth programs. So I don't honestly really know what happened to the Boys and Girls Club if it's still here in Galt, but I know the building is not there anymore. But there's plenty of youth programs that can be used in Galt, whether it be basketball courts. You know, we can open up the batting cages later over at the community park. We can do all kinds of stuff. So point, I don't care who did it, you know, it doesn't matter.
No, Mr. Gallaty, your time is up.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. It's a very emotional topic for me, and it's just, you know, so. The last thing I just did want to address, if you don't mind, because I was speaking to Cheryl Daly, I believe, I'm sorry, and she asked me to mention she asked me to see if there was such thing as a HOC Temporary Citizen Committee. I'm not sure what that is.
Well, it would have been nice if she would have told you what it was.
I have no
so we
idea.
could-
I mean, no, it was something, I mean, I honestly don't know. She had like a Facebook type page that looked like.
Okay, well, the time's up and we'll have somebody look.
Well,
at it.
I was just, I can't get an answer on what that actually is to put it together. No one knows.
Nope.
Okay, gotcha. That's all I needed was just I do not know. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Randy Kirkhoff.
Okay, Randy, do you want to?
Okay, so I know we're speaking about the public issue. I agree that I think we should have some kind of leeway of where this stuff should, you know, be smoked at. I know it affects people that don't smoke and everything else. And that's what we're on right now. I do believe that we should come up with some kind of place, though, maybe I don't know if that could be arranged. I know that Prop 64 says that you can come up with a place for smoking areas or smoking people. They cannot sell the medicine on premises. They cannot have it, but they can bring their medicine to the premises. Now, that also goes into, you know, they might have to have jet intakes or some kind of venting system, like he says.
They're called social clubs.
Yeah, it's called social clubs, Prop 64. Again, I'm not saying Galt needs one of those, but it would maybe, like I said, we can make the sidewalks, we can make the public parking, all those places like you guys want. That sounds great, but it also limits to where these other people that are in wheelchairs and that can't get to their home. Maybe they're out of town. Maybe they're visiting people here on Christmas. I don't know. But since Proposition 64 does say that we could have one of these spots, maybe we should regulate a spot in Galt. Let's say maybe it's in the commercial area of Galt where there is no housing. That would be a great idea, or something to where people don't feel like they're just being ousted out of their own town. You know, I understand the public smoking. I understand the public, I actually ingest and I actually do lotions. I'm not really a smoker. I learned that I got rid of my melanomas and everything else by using rubs. That doesn't really affect me, but I know a lot of people do smoke this. And I do, and again, maybe I might partake one day. I don't know, 80-year-old man smoking a joint. I don't want to get in trouble walking down the street. But if they have a registered area, like Prop 64 says, again, commercial area, there's plenty of spots out there by the new gym, the police area out there. There's commercial buildings. No one lives out there. No one's out there. It wouldn't affect anyone. So maybe think of that instead of just making a moratorium. I mean, like I said, it would give people a sense of like you're on their side. That's all. So,
Thank you. Okay, council, is that all we need to say? Or do we want to start taking one part at a time?
I have a question, Chief. So for public, or Jean, for public area, city-owned sidewalks, do we own the sidewalks inside the Save Mart Shopping Center and all that? So that'd be a ban on smoking walking around in the parking lot also?
No, we do not own, those are private parking lots, private sidewalks, and so that would be up to the, I guess, store owners, and maybe defer to Steve here.
The tobacco regulation.
Yeah, so what
Depends on how you-
what Prop 64 says is it prohibits the use of marijuana in any public place. A sidewalk outside a Save Mart, even though we don't own it, is in fact a public place. And the reason for the clarification is for twofold. First, to let our citizens know what is a public place. You know, where are you allowed to smoke and not smoke? And also to give some direction for our police officers so they know where to enforce this law and where it's okay to smoke. And so that's the purpose behind clarifying what do we mean in Galt when we say you cannot smoke in a public place.
I asked that question at the presentation by the League of Cities, and basically, their attorney's definition and what they say is pretty much what they believe is any place that is open to the public, that the public could enter, is a public place. That could include restaurants. It can include any, so then my question was, if we're going to talk, okay, restaurants, well, now what if a restaurant, like in Brewster's, if you're having an upstairs private party, is that a public place? They referred it back to our city attorney to give that. So I've never really got an understanding about private parties, so I think that we need to look at, when we talk about the ordinance, what do we define a public place as? Do we define it as any place in which the public could enter, or do we also talk about private places? Now, there wouldn't be any smoking in restaurants because that is prohibited, but with the whole issue about edibles, and edibles are the largest growing industry in the marijuana industry. It's not smoking, it's the edible issue. And the edible issue is going to become a much harder issue to regulate or enforce or anything when you talk about public places.
Well, next to impossible.
So I'm not,
Somebody's-
I'm not
I-
seeing that.
Well, I do think that you can say that it's that edibles, we can include in the ordinance that edibles also are not allowed in public places. Now, will that stop somebody from having an edible in the park?
Nope.
Probably not, but if they are, if there's an issue, it's on the books that we don't approve of.
Well, the chief did say that he would like it just to be that it's allowed in the privacy of your own home, correct?
Correct.
I'm kind of going along with that one myself.
Well, not your own home, but any
Well,
home,
privacy, oh, I'm sorry.
residences.
Well, it would be somebody's home, but,
Correct.
But then what happens with apartments? I mean, that whole issue arises now with apartments. If many apartment buildings now don't allow smoking inside their apartment buildings, and they don't allow smoking inside their apartments, are we going, is marijuana smoking inside an apartment, and you guys are all concerned about the odor? How does that affect the people living next door to you in an apartment building? I mean, I just think that sometimes we look at things from a really simple kind of thing of saying yes or no, and there is a whole issue about what's a public space.
well, smoking to me is smoking, if we're going with,
So are we going to allow
There's-
edibles then?
I don't even know what to say about that, because like you said, we can tell if a person's smoking, we can't tell if a person's eating.
Well, Prop 64 says that it does prohibit edibles and smoking in public places.
Yeah.
And then what is the definite? But then it becomes up to us
Right,
to define what a public place is.
correct.
So back to what I was trying to say, as I'm reading this, it says, desire to prohibit use of marijuana in buildings and property owned, leased, occupied by city, on city streets and sidewalks, and/or in parks and recreational areas. Do we need to add stores and restaurants and out on their sidewalks? Because that's not in there, is it?
No, we certainly could do that.
Well,
I think a public place, and I would suggest that we look at using the league's definition, and a public place is anything that is open to the public.
I agree.
So that needs to be added
That
in
is
there.
open to the public.
I agree with you,
A
Deb.
little more restrictive than what the chief is saying.
Okay, do we have any other thoughts on that? Public places by the definition of what the,
No,
And
I
it-
agree with the discussion.
okay, do,
So is it the council's desire for me to prepare an ordinance that would clarify that public place under Prop 64 is any place open to the public, including but not limited to city buildings, city parks, city rec areas, public sidewalks?
okay, and
Is that the desire?
I'm tagging along with what Lori said. Was there some clause somewhere that where, no smoking was allowed in other places? Does that
Commercial
pertain?
establishments or something like that.
Smoking, yeah, right.
Basically, if smoking of tobacco is not allowed in an area, then smoking marijuana is not allowed.
Yeah.
Right? Is basically what Prop 64 says.
Yes, it says that expressly.
Yeah.
So if apartment houses say no smoking, they can't.
And there would be no smoking of marijuana in those places also. I mean,
But you could stand in Save Mart parking lot and have a cigarette,
Okay.
so then you could
which is why we need to define
Right.
public places with marijuana.
Which had to be like 200 feet away or something.
If I understand, there it goes. If I understand correctly, as far as Prop 64 is concerned, as far as rental properties, that doesn't change. The owner of the rental property still has control as to what happens on that property. So whether you want to smoke, eat, do whatever you want to with marijuana, if the rental agreement says no, it's no.
Yeah, that's correct. That's outside of
Growing
our
also.
jurisdiction.
Okay.
Okay, so are we okay with number one, the use of marijuana in public places, everybody? Okay, so we're going to go on to number two.
Okay, can I offer a suggestion that we go to number 3, because I think we'll get through that a little quicker?
Sure.
At this point, I agree with what the city attorney said. We don't have to do anything under the interim ordinance. And I'm not in favor of allowing commercial activities. But there are no regulations. We really don't know how to deal with it. I would suggest that we bring this back once the regulations are established and have staff bring it back, and we can reconsider it if we want at that time. But
Didn't we have regulations before that said none were allowed here in the city?
Yes.
So our regulations under the ordinance are no commercial uses. What we're waiting on now is to see what the state regulations look like.
Okay.
Commercial including manufacturing, correct? Like baking edibles and create the oils. Well, no,
I know.
That's all of it.
it's the oils and the whole, I mean, there's this whole manufacturing out there going on and just producing edibles.
Sure.
Which is, they say, actually the largest industry growth is in that area. But I would agree that, this isn't a community where I think that we need to have a dispensary. I understand that there's a lot of tax dollars to be made, and that's the one thing that the league was pretty clear about, that there is a huge amount of tax dollars to be made for communities that want to do that. But there's also a lot of costs involved in regulating the industry. It's a cash industry. There's a whole law enforcement part. There's also, I mean, they were talking, I don't know, dispensary out of Oakland, paying $60,000 a year for a dispensary license, or, and taxing as high as 40%. But I think they're going to find that they're not going to end up taxing at 40% because it just opens up the whole black market issue.
Yes.
I just think that that's just not what our community is, and I don't think that's where our community wants to move to. It's not where I want to see our community move to.
Okay, so we're going to bring that back at a later date. Okay. So now let's go to the big discussion, marijuana cultivation.
So we have three different items on that. So first of all, does the city council desire to continue the ban on outdoor cultivation of marijuana? I think that's probably the biggest question out of all of them. And after that is, does the city council desire to regulate the indoor cultivation of marijuana? And the other question is, if so, does the city council desire to regulate with or without the issuance of a permit? I think those are the three areas that.
Okay. Personally, I don't desire to continue the ban on the outdoor cultivation, and if, as you said, we can have greenhouses, that's probably much more safe. If you've got a greenhouse, I don't think the smell is going to escape. Personally, don't think the smell is any worse than the dairies around here. And I hate to, well, I will admit it, I've smelled pot before, and I just don't think, compared to some of the plants that you grow in your backyard, that's my opinion. Council? Anybody else
So,
have an opinion?
The whole issue about 6 plants, one, I think that 6 plants is probably pretty, from what I've looked into, excessive if it was only one person in the house utilizing. That 6 plants is a lot of plants. And so the outdoor, I'd like to see outdoor cultivation allowed. I don't know if we need to, if the state reg says 6 plants per property, if we allowed outdoor cultivation of 3 plants, which would not create a huge amount of odor issue.
Right.
If we don't allow it to be over the fence, out of view of the public, I mean, all of the things that are in Prop 64 already, so that if there is an issue, and if we just allowed 3 plants outdoors, and then if they want to grow another 3 plants indoors for their total of 6 plants per property, then that's their choice. But at least it gives people who are in need, who desire recreationally or medically this marijuana, if they need it, that they have the opportunity to be able to grow it outdoors without a huge amount of regulation, a huge amount of expense, because, so I do think that maybe on a small lot, 6 plants could be a lot. But in this case, unlike we can't stop somebody from growing 6 plants indoors, we could say, well, you could grow 3 outdoors, and then if you wanted to grow 3 indoors for your total of 6 on your property, but you can't exceed 6 on the property. And that's kind of my other question, Steve, is how far in writing an ordinance are we able to go to regulate or enforce? Meaning that if in fact somebody exceeds the 6 plants, or if somebody lets it grow higher than their fence, and it can be viewed from the public, are we allowed to say, it's okay, so state law allows 6 plants, you grow 8 plants, you're going to get fined heavily for those 2 plants. Are we allowed to do that kind of enforcement in our ordinance? Because there's part of me that says, yes, you're allowed to grow 6 plants, but you exceed that or you break what the ordinance is or what the proposition allows, that there needs to be some enforcement behind that into what we can do, and generally that's money for people. I mean, it's a misdemeanor. I know it's not going to be, so.
Well, I just want to say that I agree with Lori on the 3, because that's what I've been preaching for over a year, since it first started. So I think, and I agree that if it's just for one person with medicinal uses, and that's, 3's good, 3's a good number. I'm agreeing.
Steve, I can, on the over 6 plants, it's a misdemeanor, it's a $500 fine. That's what the punishment, or the penalty is for growing over 6 plants.
So if I had 30
20
plants, it's still it's still going to be
Misdemeanors,
$500?
fine.
Yeah, but they
Per
take them all
plant.
away.
And if it's in, so just full disclosure, if it was a felony before this law, I can get a search warrant to go on somebody's property. If it's a misdemeanor, their judge isn't going to sign a search warrant to go into the backyard. And so if we're going to, again, it's just my personal opinion from my experience, if we're going to allow outdoor grows, if that's the direction of council, then if we can, because it's going to grow taller than a 6-foot fence. If we,
Well, no, actually, proposition says it cannot be in view of the public. If you allow outdoor cultivation, it cannot be in view of the public, which means that somebody would have to keep it cut below their fence level.
well,
Can I just say something for a second? After you,
that changes the
you
production
can't
of the.
speak more than twice.
It changes the production of the plant. I mean, if they're going to, I'm not a horticulturist, I'm just, again, with experience, they're going to have to grow it into a 10-gallon bucket to keep it that size. If you plant it in the ground and you use fertilizer, it will grow taller than 6 foot. And so if we were going to allow outdoor grow, if we're going to say only 3 plants, let's say, and we're to say that it has to be 5 foot away from a fence or whatever we decide, or whatever you all decide, we would have to have some legal reason besides the neighbor complaining to go into somebody's backyard and do any kind of enforcement on those plants. So I think that's important to know too, because the complaints will come through. I mean, that's going to happen. It's going to happen whether they're indoors or outdoors. It's going to be more so on the outdoors, and we are going to be the ones going to get called for that. And so I think it's been clearly stated about the smell, and I only bring up the smell because all those other criminal activities that went along with growing in the backyard, I can only talk about past. I don't know what it's going to be like going forward. We can only speculate. Time will tell whether it becomes a criminal issue again if people are growing in the backyard. So I didn't really hammer that home. I didn't talk about that too much. I just talked about the smell because it's a quality of life thing. So how can we maintain the quality of life in Galt for our citizens that are not partaking? If we are going to allow them to grow outside, how do we do that? And how do we keep it down to 6 foot? And again, if you plant it in the ground and you put nice fertilizer on it, you have to grow more than 2 plants because you can't grow a single plant and yield any usable quantity. You have to have the male-female plant and the cross-pollination. But if you grow more than
Nope.
Oh, they're saying no.
Well, they.
Sorry, I'm not an expert. All I can do is tell you what I
well,
read.
then-
I'm not a horticulturist.
Okay,
But if they do that, you have to figure out a way, we have to figure out a way to maybe regulate the size of the plant. And that might have to be the container that they grow it in instead of just planting it in the ground.
Well, I think that becomes up to the person that's growing it to know that those are the rules, right? And that's part of Prop 64. But the other issue, Chief, is that, we talk about the smell, but we don't talk about the fact of when it's growing inside of a home and the whole electrical and water issue of inside homes and the fire danger, which in some ways concerns me more. And I know a permit process, but there's going to be people out there with 6 plants in their house who aren't going to get permits. And
that aren't going to hook it up the way they're supposed to hook it up, and when their house catches on fire because their electricity is all messed up, it's.
Well, and
There's so many, there's just so many.
Well, and the whole thing about an ordinance is, at least at this point, we pass an ordinance. If it comes back a year from now and you tell us we're getting tons of calls or what the whole enforcement issue looks like, because I think that we're trying to be very cognitive of the enforcement issue, but I think there's an enforcement issue regardless. Somebody growing it in a room and opening up the windows is going to have a smell issue. But you can do that. You can open up your windows. So I guess that's one of my concerns, is that that's the great thing about an ordinance, is that we can come back and we can discuss it again if it's really being a problem. If there's something we need to change, if the outdoor grow is really a problem, then we come back and we look at that and say, well, maybe this isn't working and why it's not working. And then at least we can explain to the community about why it's not working. Because what I'm hearing from the community is that there's a desire for the economics, a need for whether it's medicine or recreational, for them to be able to do what Prop 64 intended. And I know that Prop 64 said we can't regulate the indoor grow, but I still get very concerned about this health and safety of an indoor grow. And I don't think that Prop 64 looked at the public health issue. I think they looked at the money issue.
Right.
Madam Mayor, if I can just clarify a few points. I think, first of all, we need to recognize or reemphasize a point that the manager indicated earlier. Kind of in a learning mode on this, and this isn't an area where, as a city, we have much expertise, if any. And so we're going to have to do our best shot at the start, and we're going to have to change as we get more knowledge and we get more experience. And that's perfectly fine. As it relates to regulation, and we can regulate indoors, but our regulations need to be reasonable. And, that's not defined in the regulation or in Prop 64, but reasonable means that we need to articulate what the purpose is for the regulation. It can't be a regulation that is essentially designed to inhibit the person's ability to grow the 6 plants that they're allowed to do under law. It has to be a regulation that's designed to protect the integrity of the building, protect the health of the people that are living in the home. So there needs to be a damn good reason for the regulation. I think that's basically the standard. As it relates to the the number of plants and what the fine is going to be, I understand what the chief indicated, that you go from 6 to 7 plants, it may be $500, but I think there's another story there. At some point, it starts to look like a commercial establishment, and then I think if there is it's a commercial grow, that there's a different level of remedies that would be available to us. So I don't think somebody's going to have 30 plants in their backyard and indicate that it's it's for
Personal use.
Personal use.
Yeah.
Valentine Court, I disagree.
That was not personal use.
No, that was totally not personal. That guy was.
That was his excuse.
They were selling it.
Chief,
Absolutely.
how many ounces do you cultivate from one plant?
Depends on the plant.
You want us to know, or?
Okay, so for one thing, it only grows, depending on the.
Mayor, if you can have public,
Okay.
we need to,
You guys, what?
if you.
I
if you-
said
quickly
we've
tell me,
already
give me a
talked
number.
twice.
So,
I guess
the
if-
whole 6-foot thing.
Excuse me, if council, at the mayor's direction, chooses to have the public comment, if we can have it.
It's a rule, I'll let you speak twice, so.
Sorry.
I just want a
I'm
number.
sorry. It depends on the plant. If you got a little plant, you get.
Don't they,
So I'm not sure if I'm going to get their head shaken no or not, so I can just tell you what I prepared and read,
Okay.
what's coming out of the state. So one plant could yield up to a pound, so that's accurate. And
shaking their heads. They
so bigger, maybe more, smaller, less, but on average, if you were to grow one plant in your backyard, you're going to get a pound of marijuana.
so as I understand, anything over an ounce has to be under lock and key once it's harvested and out of public view.
Well,
So that's
and
something-
you're only allowed to have under an ounce in your possession when you
Okay.
leave your residence.
House, when you're
Okay.
pulled over.
You're only allowed to give away, share with somebody over 21, less than an ounce.
Okay.
So that's a lot of ounces.
Maybe have we looked into Colorado yet and seen what they're doing, researched maybe?
Okay, where are we at?
Thank you, Chief.
Well, we're at the 3 items of, if there's whether we're going to continue the ban on outdoor grows, regulated indoor grows, and
Okay, well, I think the consensus is no on outdoor. We want to look into that. We don't want to say you can't grow outdoor.
No,
Correct?
I disagree with that. I strongly disagree with having an outdoor grow still.
All right, then,
Disagree with it also.
Madam Mayor, I think you could entertain a motion at this point if you so desire on,
okay, do we have a motion to allow outdoor growth of 3 plants? Or can we not go that far, or what?
Let me make a comment. I am undecided at this point on the outdoor grow issue. And it's basically, I would like to get some more information.
Good answer.
And I don't know that we're pressed to make a decision today, but I think that, I don't know that 1 plant, 2 plants, 6 plants, I don't know what's a reasonable number if you're going to allow it outdoors. I have real doubts that if we impose a regulation for indoor grows to, require the permit and the venting or the proper venting and so forth, whether those are ever going to get permitted. So I think it really puts the council in a position, what's practical here? People are going to grow it, and I've said this before, they're going to grow it whether it's indoors or outdoors. If they want to, they will.
They already are.
They are. So my point is, I'm just not, I would like to see maybe a draft of what the indoor grow regulations would look like, and maybe some reasonable regulations for what would be imposed for an outdoor grow. Because right now, we're just talking about allowing it, and we don't know what those regulations are. And I think that, whether other jurisdictions have, probably not many have approached this yet because it's relatively new. But I would like to see what other communities have done for both the indoor. and
Actually, there's a lot of communities that have drafted allowing grow of medical marijuana. So there is some stuff out there regarding medical marijuana. I mean, a large number of communities, a large number of state of California allow outdoor grows for medical marijuana.
Yes.
And the question
Ton.
that Lamson, Councilmember Lamson brought up, I think the issue of yield is important. I don't, an average plant produces a pound. Well, is a pound good for a year? Or you need 2 pounds? Or, see, I don't know what consumption is.
Don't leave.
So I mean, those are sorts of things that I think that, maybe we could, if staff could do some more research. I don't know who you're going to talk to, but, and bring that information back, because right now I'm really undecided.
Okay.
But I think that we could we move forward with directing staff regarding drafting an ordinance regarding, the recommendations from staff regarding, we could at least give some direction on drafting the ordinance regarding use in public places. It sounded like we had a consensus on that.
Sure.
We could,
No,
I would make a motion that we direct staff to bring us back an ordinance regarding the use of marijuana in public places.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Call for the vote. Please, Donna?
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye.
So we're on a roll. So I would also, make an ordinance that we do,
That was unanimous.
Ordinance regarding commercial marijuana activity,
Second.
the banning commercial
The banning
marijuana
commercial.
activity.
Do we need an ordinance for that?
It's already an ordinance.
We already have
We
it.
already have
Yeah.
one. Okay, so that's done.
What about the processing or testing facilities?
all commercial establishments are currently banned under the emergency ordinance.
So I guess depending upon what were to happen in the future, that might be, with a conditional use permit, something that we would look at. It's not a dispensary, it's a testing or processing facility. That, that would have to come back to us as a conditional use permit anyway.
And then I guess for item number 2, I don't know if we need a motion. Do we need a motion on number 2 about the issues which I discussed?
Well, it says, are we at the city council's desire to regulate the indoor cultivation of marijuana? Is that where you're at?
So if the council desires to see a draft of an ordinance on cultivation, indoor and outdoor, just to get a sense as to what that looks like. What I'd propose is that we kind of draft it in concept and not run it through the planning commission.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring back the conceptual ordinance, get your reaction to it, get further direction, and then if it is something that you desire to enact, we would have to move it through the planning commission, since it would be a change to our zoning ordinance.
And I don't think we've really talked about the permit issue, but I personally have really thought about this a lot, and I just don't want to go down the road of making people get permits. And even though I understand that we now would know who's all growing, it's a public document. And when you talk about law enforcement issues, now anybody that's growing in their home, and we don't go in and inspect people's homes for other medicine or other recreational drugs, or activities, and I just have really strong feelings about that permit process. I'm not in favor of us going forward with a permit process at this point. Maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe at some point, permit process, but when we talk about not having enough staff to enforce things now we're going to add on everybody getting a permit for any sort of cultivation. I'm just not.
Well,
I'm just not willing to
if you do an
I
indoor
don't see you
grow,
counting chickens.
Nope.
Are you going to count marijuana plants?
well, if you do an indoor grow and you are accessing your electrical system and altering your watering system and your venting system, I think those are the concerns they have with the.
Are those activities that require a building permit currently?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, then, you've got to get your you've still got to follow the current code.
That's the
To
permit.
do it, if you got to go in and do a permit because you're changing some of your electrical and
It
your water
doesn't say
issue.
marijuana grow on the permit, it'll say a
Well, it
plumbing,
would,
plumbing,
right.
electrical, no, it'd be a plumbing, electrical modification, that's all it is.
Okay.
It's an over-the-counter permit. I would
Well, that's fine. If we set up that, if you're making modifications to your electrical and wire, if that already requires a building permit and already requires that, then that's not a new regulation. That's
No, it is not.
already on the
That's
books.
good
But
enough.
I'm not willing to add new regulations.
Okay, I
for
don't,
people just because of marijuana.
no, but it would point out that if the ordinance requires them to get a permit, to do whatever standard needs to, and I don't even know what the standard is for an indoor grow. I mean, for watering systems or, I have no idea.
And then unlike other building permits, you go in and you do a one-time inspection, not it will allow us access to their home anytime, which is another problem with the whole permit process.
They get a final, it's signed off, it's done.
And I'm good with that, but that's not what was proposed to us last meeting. Last meeting, I was told, well, it would give us access to their home if there's a problem. Well, if I install a water heater and my water heater's done, that doesn't allow you to come back in and inspect my home at a future date.
That's correct.
To permit my water heater.
How did, is that the case? Did staff believe that would somehow provide additional access if you had a permit?
I don't think it would provide, just by virtue of the permit, it would provide, regular and unfettered access. It could be as Councilmember Ewer indicated, that, you get the permit, and once it's final, then you've got the permit, unless there's probable cause to go back into the home. There could be an issue or an option to put a provision there for inspections annually, inspections semi-annually. But that's at the discretion of the council. And I don't know what would be recommended by the building staff relating to that particular issue. But some of the items that could be imposed as a part of a permit process would be the area of the home in which you are allowed to grow. So, your indoor grow would have to be areas other than kitchens, bedrooms, sleeping areas, bathrooms. I mean, that's one option. It could be limited to square footage. It could be in an area of the home that has installation for the ventilation. So, I mean, there's these would be the types of things that you could inspect by way of a permit. And I think that the other part about a permit is that it's not just from an enforcement perspective. You might have somebody that wants to grow indoors, but they want to make sure that they're doing it in a safe manner. Just like, when you have a building permit for electrical, you're happy to see your inspector come and make sure that the work's been done appropriately. So the benefit of having a permit may be for folks that want the city to come in and make sure that the electrical, the ventilation, the protection against mold, those types of things have been installed appropriately. It might provide an opportunity for us to provide additional information about keeping people away from, pesticides or other health and safety issues. So it just provides an opportunity for interaction with people, and maybe from a helpful perspective, not from a heavy-handed perspective.
But then what it sounds to me like, Steve, is that then we're back to getting a permit to grow marijuana, instead of getting a permit to change your electrical or to change your watering system. A building permit to change your water or electrical, but a building that we're going to make people get a permit to grow marijuana, I have concerns about that, because I think that we are, again, is that a reasonable regulation? I mean, I know it says we can regulate, but it says we've got to be reasonable. Is it reasonable to make people get a permit for something that's allowed by state law? But now, I absolutely agree, if I'm going to go in and change the electrical in my home, and that is an item that Galt currently says you're required to get a permit for, well, we don't change that. I mean, if you're going to if you're going to set up a watering system and that currently would require a permit, then we don't change that. And I absolutely do not agree with semi-annual or annual inspections. I just don't think that by virtue of growing marijuana that you open your house up to people coming in and inspecting it. I just think that that's over-regulation and way beyond what we should be doing. And, I think we have rights as citizens not to have people coming into our homes and,
Well, we're also not required to regulate. I mean, if the council's desire is just to, state law governs, people can grow 6 plants indoors, and you don't want to regulate. You have an option to regulate, you don't have a requirement to regulate.
So I talked to a retired detective sergeant from Elk Grove, and currently what Elk Grove does, they did it for the medical, is you get a permit, a free permit, a simple permit, like an alarm permit, and they hand them when they come and get it, they hand them the law, here's the law, and that kind of protects the people, because then when neighbors call and complain, then they know, well, they have a permit, and they can send code regulation out, they don't have to do that. So that kind of helps the people that are growing it and the rest, so not an invasive permit like Councilmember Hugh was talking about. So just something to think about when you're considering all our options.
Did they say specifically where the grows are taking
Yeah,
place?
inside or out?
I believe it was the medical, so was that?
It could be either.
Elk Grove allows
I'll
outdoor
ask him.
grows.
Yeah.
Elk Grove allows outdoor grows.
Yeah, it doesn't medical can be either. You said, yeah. So,
Quick question. It was mentioned earlier today, and I think actually the mayor mentioned it, and it kind of fell by the wayside. Everybody keeps focusing on indoor grows in the home. Nobody's continued on the path of the indoor grow in an outbuilding, whether it be a greenhouse or a 10 by 12, 120, is it 120 square foot, correct?
Your chicken coop.
There's no issue.
perfect.
That would be perfect. It's something, as was said, you've got over a pound per plant, maximum. Okay, we'll use that as an example. It has to be locked away. An outbuilding can be locked. Somebody complained about the fact light. Well, guess what? You've got corrugated plastic that's clear, sunlight. You've eliminated the electrical problem. Water, a hose and a hose bib, we're fixed.
What I've looked into, Steve, and what I understand is that we can't, could we, if indoor grow is allowed, by Proposition 64, it's allowed, can we say, no, you can't grow inside your home, you can only grow outside in a outside area, 5 feet from your fence, so accessory structure and that whole, can we do that? Because my understanding is,
better.
and what I was listening to the league was that, you can regulate, but can we do that?
Well,
What's your legal
Can you,
opinion?
can you define the grow area as the accessory structure?
yeah. So some communities have done that. There's a couple of them that I'm aware of that have banned outdoor grow and have said that indoor growing is allowed under state law, but only in an accessory dwelling and not in the primary residence. So it needs to be in a accessory dwelling on the same parcel as the primary structure.
Okay.
Whether or not that's going to be subject to legal challenge remains to be seen, because I think that's probably, on the edge of what Prop 64 intended.
And we have a lot of restrictions regarding accessory structures. And we have some homes, some dwellings, some residences that, believe me, their backyards aren't big enough to put an accessory structure in. So now we've taken away their right to even grow.
You may have, I don't know that it would be completely eliminated, but maybe you couldn't get a full 10 by 12. You may have to, maybe something smaller.
Well, and you also have issues with apartments. So let's say you have an apartment dweller where the landlord says, yes, you can grow. And if then we say you can only be in an accessory structure, then we're
We've taken away their
potentially
right.
taking away their right under Prop 64.
No, you'd have to evaluate it from the point of view of single-family versus multifamily
How about saying
residential
you can take your
units.
6 plants and
You'd have
put
to,
them
you'd have to have a different standard, yeah.
indoors or not.
Like I said, I think there'll be more information to come as we go down. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the state does with the regulations regarding the state. I know this, and the state's much more focused on regulating the whole issue of the tax dollars and the
Right.
money generated, but, I
think that's a major problem for right now as it stands, because
I just don't- yeah.
it's a cash issue. Federal government still looks down upon it. In fact, you can't put any of those monies in anything that's federally insured. So I think it would be in our best interest to see where the state comes with that one, because I know they're in the process of doing some work with it.
yeah, I mean, actually, I think it's good that we've continued our current ordinance for the time being, because I think that we need to give it time. I mean, I don't think we need to react so quickly that we become one of those test cases, that because of our size, we become an easy test case, right? Because it's very expensive to defend whatever action we take. So I personally would like to see what larger cities who are already, collecting tax dollars, what other cities and jurisdictions do before we make some really fast decisions that could end up putting us in the situation of having to defend those decisions in a court.
But the tax dollars come from the commercial use, and we already have
Yep.
something on the commercial use, so we're already there with that one.
But it's just, Mary Lou, I don't know if you understand exactly what I'm saying, is that we've got time on our side. We don't have to make decisions immediately regarding all of these issues and become somebody's test case.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you said, but then you said regarding the commercial, and I said we already have an ordinance from how many years ago regarding the commercial?
Yeah, a couple years ago. It was a year ago.
It's been about 4 or 5 or something. It's been a
No,
while.
I was on the council when we did it. Yeah,
Uh-uh.
yeah.
Really? How
Yeah.
many years has it been?
Probably
Well,
about a
I'm
couple of
sorry,
years.
it doesn't matter. We've got one. All
No,
I
I
know
was
is we've
here
got
when we
one,
did it.
so-
Selling place in the city.
Okay.
So, and we had some thoughts, okay, there were some thoughts on the public places. I don't think that's going to get us in trouble if we say that the public places, this is what we think a public place is. We're not setting anything in stone right now, we're just coming back with some thoughts and ideas we have. And we've kind of been round and round, and I think we've got a lot of the same ideas about the public place, we don't know where we are with the indoor and outdoor, but let's see if you could maybe do both and just make it the 6 plants and call the outbuilding, the greenhouse or whatever. But we're not making any decisions right now. We're just kind of getting some thoughts to hopefully push ourselves in the right direction, not to be,
Well, I would just like staff to bring back updates to us regarding what's happening, if there is some new information out there, if there are some things happening. And
Well, I
that
think-
between now and December, that we, have updates and talk about those issues. and
Right, we've been-
Stay abreast of what's happening.
yes, we've said that all along, right? That we want updates.
Well, with the council's permission, what I would like to do is to collect some more information on the cultivation issue as far as what other communities are doing regionally with, some other statewide examples, and kind of bring that back, say, within a month. And then see with that additional information, if you want to give any further direction on what we do with cultivation.
Right.
Because as I talked about earlier, and as Councilmember Ewer brought up, state law says that you're allowed to grow 6 plants indoors. I think we have a reasonable time to decide whether or not we want to regulate and what those regulations look like. But I think that as more time passes, it becomes easier to challenge that emergency regulation. And so the sooner we're able to get comfortable on what at least an initial cultivation ordinance looks like, indoor, outdoors, I think we'd be better served. So unless you think it's too soon, I'd like to shoot to come back in a month with some additional information on the cultivation issue, and see if that is worthy of your consideration, and you want to provide any direction at that time.
I think the sooner
That's
the better.
great. Knowledge is power. It'd be great to have a little bit of thought on what some of the, so do we need a motion for that? Okay.
Didn't work.
Just need to know if there's an objection.
Say that again?
Only if there's an objection.
Okay, so we're good? We're done?
Good.
We're moving on?
Moving on.
We're moving and a shaking? Okay. Now we're to you, Armando, the Lighting of the Night event.
I'll try and take us to a happier place here.
It was a happy day.
It was a happy place.
It was a
a lot
very
of fun.
nice night.
It was.
Good afternoon again, Mayor and Council. Today I'll be reporting the cost and revenue report for the 2016 Lighting of the Night event. Lighting of the Night sponsor this year was
The Grinch?
Light of the Night has no financial sponsors.
Bummer.
The Light of the Night has never had a sponsor and has been solely paid for by the city of Galt. I'll be reviewing all of these year's events cost that we had that night. So we had the City Tots performance, we had the Galt Elementary School District Choir, the Galt Liberty Unified Band, and the Church Latter-day Saints Chimes. All of these were held in the Littleton Community Center, and the rough cost basically was for staff. It equaled $845. This cost was offset by volunteers from the Galt FC Football Club. They assisted us in the setup of the event, which we greatly appreciated. The next event was Pictures with Santa. They were held here in these chambers, and children and families were able to take a picture with Santa, and they were provided a free printed picture courtesy of Shop Local. There were no costs associated with this event. Then we got a gift this year. We got Sacto Mofo to join us on Civic Drive.
That was
And,
great.
and speaking to the owner, he was very happy with it. A couple of their trailers sold out, and he really wants to come back next year. And that takes us back to the Lighting of the Night Parade. So with the resignation of longtime parade coordinator Patrice Moreno, staff was directed to take over the Lighting of the Night Parade. And with the help of IDC Parade Coordinator Brenda Renfro, the parade was a huge success. I'd like to thank Brenda for her continued support on the city's parades, and a special thank you to our firemen, police department, and public works department for helping with the street closures. Total cost for the parade was $5,120, And that cost, there was a one-time additional cost for barricades in the amount of $3,000. Those barricades will be used annually for the IDC parade, lighting of the night parade, and any other parade that's approved for this route.
Were they included in that 5,000?
They were included in that 5,000.
okay.
So staff
So-
cost was about $2,200.
Okay.
Wow.
It was a great parade, but there was some safety concerns. Throwing of the candy. With the new route and larger crowds, you can see here, they're about 4 or 5 deep, standing in the middle of the street as the parade goes by. This caused adults and some children to run into the streets in front of the big rigs, underneath some of the floats. It was very difficult for them to see. So at the end of this presentation, we're going to look to you for some direction on how to handle this issue that we had this year. So, as we discussed, we had no sponsors. The performances was $845, parade $5,120, for a total of $5,965 for this event. So I'll take any questions on the presentation, and then we get into the discussion of the parade, throwing of the candy or objects from the floats, if you have any.
Gene did it.
Yeah.
How many people did you hit?
It's just fall in the direction of my bosses.
One quick question is, like we did is there a way that we can go out and get some sponsors? Because it's a pretty big event, and we did that with the 4th of July. But did we all tapped out when we get the sponsors for the 4th of July?
I would be glad to come and ask for a fee waiver from the council for the next event.
Okay. No, stop it.
No, we,
Or are you going to get out your checkbook?
no, I'm not going to get out my checkbook. That's a little bit more out of my pay range. We could, if that is the direction that council would like us to go. Let me tell you, it is difficult to ask for money, to get people to sponsor. I mean, we've been lucky to have Dave Vaccarazza with Cal Waste sponsor a number of our events. We're already asking for sponsorship for IDC, the Winter Bird Festival that's coming up this next week. I think that we may be tapped out, but I will follow your direction.
No, but I guess if we make this, if we've got a budget for how much we could use, and we've got these other ones, because I think this is a city-sponsored event. So if we're doing well with the others, maybe it wouldn't hurt us to pay for one
Yeah.
in the budget. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
no, I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's a benefit to the community. I think, and I think that there's potential in the future. I mean, I think this year it was put together, you know, I mean, you guys did a great job, but I mean, it wasn't a long planned out sort of thing. So I think there's potential, not for sponsorship, but for opportunities for this to become even a better community event. I mean, just all of the community that came out, I just thought the benefit to the, this provides me a benefit to the community, just for the fact that it brought the community out, and like I said, the food trucks, and the community center was packed with everybody performing, and gave an opportunity for kids to perform in a public place. And so I think that sometimes there are events that, you know, are for the broad-based community. They aren't being done to make money. They aren't being done to do those things. They're just being done to bring us together as a community.
Right. I did have one thought, though, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm sorry, I should have said something before this. But going down D Street sucks. I mean, there's nobody there. There are no street lights. It's darker than dark. Is that just because we just really want it to be focused on 4th and?
So I heard those comments coming that night. I purposely went down there and looked, and there's a street light on every corner. So there is.
Really?
Yeah, because the
It's
biggest.
awfully darn dark.
The biggest complaint was it was so dark, and I thought there was lights, and I went down there and there were lights, and some of the suggestions that I have is that we really advertise that area for people to.
I think that was
actually
a
go
new
visit.
street, and so
Yeah.
people weren't on it because it was a new street.
Well, there's very few houses on that street and stuff, too, so it may be a new street. but
And
it's
some of the
not-
things I wanted to do was talk
Yeah.
to the church that's on that property and
Right.
possibly have them host something that night. And again, first year.
Oh, my
first
bad, I'm
time.
sorry. I thought it
Oh,
was
no.
really, really dark.
It isn't as lit up as C Street is because of the businesses and the lights, but there
Oh,
are
okay.
light poles on every corner.
All right, then I retract my statement. Okay, so we want to get to the candy?
If you have no other questions,
Okay.
you don't have a question, just look.
No, I'm waiting for the candy portion to come up.
So the issue that we had was the candy throwing, and I probably should have worded that a little differently. And anytime we throw anything from a float, so substitute the candy for any object being thrown from the float. So we came up with a couple options. Prohibit the throwing of candy from floats, allow the throwing of the candy from floats, and one of the best suggestions that we could come up with was require each float to have a designated walking candy thrower. So this person would be on either side or both sides of the float, away from the float, throwing the candy into the crowd or handing it out to the kids.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about throwing the candy from the floats, and a lot of cities have banned it for all the safety reasons that you've described. And when we're on those floats throwing them, you know, it's kind of a ways to throw
Well,
sometimes.
I think it's
and
because this is a nighttime event.
and
It
ends
was
in the
much
streets.
harder than 4th of July.
Yeah.
Where it's in the light. Since it was nighttime, it was hard to, you know,
Yeah.
see kids running out.
I was down in the streets, because you guys were on the float, and they were, the people throwing couldn't get it past their car sometimes.
No.
It would just land right outside. And then some of the older children were just bam, and people were getting, because it's dark.
Yeah.
You know, people were getting.
Well, that happens in the daytime, too. It's
That's
the
true.
same scenario works at both of them. They don't go far enough or somebody's getting decked with them.
So I feel like the parents couldn't really enjoy, the parade was beautiful, and no one's enjoying it because they're looking for candy. See all the candy on the street right there? You can see.
Well, and the
It's in
mess
middle
the
of the
next
street.
day was horrible.
Well, and
It
the
is
truth of
Christmas.
the
They get
matter
so much
is,
candy
we're not
already.
having that much fun either because we're too busy throwing the candy and we're not really getting to,
And it's a time of the year where we were giving out hot chocolate and goodies already. I don't even know if it's necessary to have someone walk along the side.
Well, if I can, because we've done it during the IDC, especially with the new addition of the military vehicles. They have people who walk alongside those vehicles handing things out, and I think it's just, it makes common sense to continue it into this. Whether it be a daytime, nighttime event, I don't care what type of an event we have as far as a parade's concerned. If you're gonna have a parade and to say, no, they're not gonna do it, that's, we've tried that before, it doesn't
Okay.
work.
Okay.
But if we modify it enough so that, okay, so you're gonna throw candy. Instead of throwing it, have somebody walk alongside your float. We're not talking walking around the entire path that we had prior.
Correct.
We're
It-
talking
the-
maybe 6 or 7 blocks at the most.
The route is 1.1 miles.
Okay. And if they throw far enough, they'll keep the crowd
They don't
back.
have to throw, they just walk and hand them
Yeah.
out. Works beautifully.
yeah, that's what they do at I've been to
Okay.
other parades where they're just walking on the side.
I'll agree to that.
Where are you going to get the walkers?
Yeah,
Council
you,
members.
put your tennis shoes on, get rocking.
Well, it's,
Gene said
it's,
he'd do it.
yeah, it's just the,
That's what the commissioners are for. I would participate with you.
That's a great idea.
I think, well, if we don't want to,
well, yeah, I just said, the thing that happens, I didn't realize how, I mean, it's one thing when the council's throwing candy and we were throwing candy, so we're just as, but my God, it's almost like every float was throwing candy.
Correct.
yeah, that's the
That's
deal,
fine,
too.
It just becomes
Right.
so much. So.
Yeah, and the kids never stop and nobody's watching.
And the kids
parade.
come carrying their bags, they're looking forward to it, so I would lean toward the let's give the designated walking thing at the 4th of July parade and see how that works,
think it'll
right?
fly.
We can always come back and evaluate.
What do you guys think?
Sounds
Over
good.
there,
I like it.
Down there.
Okay, so that was the
We've
major
overthought this.
concern regarding,
I think we've overthought it.
Aye.
So are we all in agreement of C then?
I think
Yes,
so.
ma'am.
All right.
What are you thinking, Kurt? You think we should just keep throwing it?
I don't, yeah, I'm certain this is really, worthy to have a major discussion on.
Okay.
I really don't. I mean,
That's scary.
I guess my experience hasn't been what I'm hearing tonight. On the lighting of the night, the one that I've done in the past, and 4th of July, And I'll agree, it's a more compact, so I don't know what it was like. I wasn't able to go this year. So maybe for this one, but for the 4th of July, I didn't see any problems by throwing the candy.
Well, I think we're in front of the parade, so I don't think we see what's happening behind us.
Well, we're throwing candy.
Kids have gotten killed that
But
way.
I think it's that.
In a parade.
I think we're
Look
throwing
it
it
up.
first, and it doesn't seem so bad, and it's then as it gets amplified with everybody else throwing it, then it becomes more,
Encroached.
I don't know. And I think part of it was it being dark.
Well, it's kind of fun if with your float, you have people that walk alongside it, you can dress them up and, okay, so are
Hey,
we?
it might be fun for us to walk the parade. It's only a mile.
Yeah, really.
I think we have a speaker.
If I may, please. One of the things that I'd like to mention in that, because when I saw this, it was like, maybe I should talk, maybe I shouldn't, but we were actually standing on Civic Center Drive, and one of the concerns I had was the trucks were parked along one side, and we ran the route down the center, and the throwing of the candy was really scared me. There were some elderly folks sitting in front of me, and they were dodging, and then there were kids running in front of them. So the Civic Center portion of it really made it tight.
Too narrow.
And
Yeah.
so there was a big concern there, and I was surprised. And my thing is, and Sac Mofo, those guys are awesome. They do the Saturday, the first Saturday, and these guys actually clean up too. So they go around and clean up. So I really endorse the city using them. But I just want to make a comment about that Civic Center portion. That's where it was real tight, and in my opinion, was the most dangerous. And if that happens again, maybe we don't, maybe we have them, hey, because that's the start of the parade, no throwing until you get out onto C Street. But
No, then that'll,
I'm still kind of thinking having a designated person, because I'm really not up for that, or
Yeah.
think it's well. Thank you.
right.
Just so you know, we identified that as an issue also, and we've already figured out how to take care of that. We'll be placing barriers so people can't cross in front of the trucks and on the sidewalks. What they did is they started sitting in the gutter, so if we can keep them onto the sidewalk, it'll create a bigger area for them to go through.
I was just really concerned the next day at how much of a mess there was. I mean, the fact of what staff had to do to clean it up. There was candy along the entire route, just garbage. It was bad. The next day when you drove, you were like, oh, my.
Yes.
Can we have a motion on, do we have to motion this?
What I'd like to do is just get some direction from you and then come back with some rules and regulations for the parade, but this was the major concern that we had.
Okay, what's everybody's, I say, have a candy thrower. What do you guys say?
Fine with that.
C.
Okay, C.
Okay, then we'll be back with some rules and regulations for our parades.
Okay.
Future council.
Thank you so much, Armando. Thanks for all the work you do for all these events, and thank your staff for us too, please. It was a beautiful night. We had a lot of fun.
It's lovely.
All righty.
Okay, Emily.
All righty, now we're at you, Emily, the amended general fund, fund balance, and reserve policy.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. I will begin as soon as Mr. Winkler gets me up and running here, which will be any second now. It's going way low. I know. That's it. Gotcha. Okay, so while that's loading, what I wanted to start off by saying is that this is a short presentation, just so you know.
Good girl.
Thank you.
10 slides.
4.
10 slides. So reserve funds are sometimes called a rainy day policy, and that's what you do reserve money for, is in the event of an unforeseeable, unplanned something that you need some reserve set aside to handle. Some of those reserves could be natural disasters, earthquakes or fires, financial emergencies. I put in here PERS spikes, CalPERS spikes in the cost. It's conceivable that with the recent reduction in the discount rate that our PERS rates could spike. So we want to have some kind of reserve or fallback for that. And then economic cycles, we've talked about this before, you know, economic cycles or economic conditions are cyclical, they go up and down. And so we need to be prepared for those sorts of things. And so I have in here in this PowerPoint, I have 3 recommendations. And the first one is to make our reserve policy more transparent. We had adopted a reserve policy in 2014, and what I'm doing today is asking for some revisions to that reserve policy. I would like to, just point out that one of the things that we need to do is we need to explain the terms that we're using. We need to use tables and charts to show things to people, and we need to provide trend analysis and forecasts. An important reminder, sometimes this gets confused. Fund balance does not equal fund reserve. In our June 30, 2016 audited fund balances were 7.8 million fund balance, and our reserve was 3.3 million. And that reserve 3.3 is 20% of the general fund and Parks and Recreation Fund operating expenses. So then just to look at what was in the 7.8 million, and to point out to you, this is also in the CAFR. It's note 9 in the notes to the financial statements in the CAFR. So this information is in there every year. If you want to know what it is or what it has been in the past, you can always look at it. Non-spendable represents things that can't easily be spent. In other words, they're not cash. They're things like inventories or prepaids, loans receivable, that sort of thing. Restricted are items that are restricted by agencies other than us. So if we have, for example, money from CDBG, that's restricted by CDBG on how we can use it. Committed are items that are restricted by the governing body of the city, that's you. Our 20%, that 3.3 million reserve that I had on an earlier slide is in the committed category. There's also some encumbrances and a few other things that are in the committed category. Assigned represents things that are either assigned internally or by the governing body. And in this case, there are things like compensated absences, the liability for compensated absences, and there's a few other minor things in there, such as, I think, the youth committee or the CARF funds in the planning department. And unassigned is the residual balance. That's what's left after all of the other restrictions. This slide here has definitions of those items that I just spoke of to you. And then here's the general fund balance going back to 2011. And it's broken out there by categories. The green bar is committed balance, and that is your reserve. And the blue bar, sort of blue, is the unassigned or that residual amount. You'll notice there in 2015, the committed number went way up. That bar got a lot bigger, and the unassigned balance got a lot smaller. And that was a result of the 2014 reserve policy that was approved by this council. And that reserve policy was the 20% of general fund and Parks and Rec operating expenses. And there's the numbers. The bottom section there says fiscal year audited operating expenditures. That should say fiscal year 16. That's the year I'm referring to there. At 20%, it's the 3.3 million. At 25%, which is what I'm recommending, is 4.2 million. And then here's some slides about what some of the other cities do. We had the recent CSMFO, which is the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers survey, had reserves that ranged from 10 to 50%. Elk Grove its reserve ranges between 15 and 20%, depending on a couple of different factors they have in there. And Lodi has a catastrophic reserve of 8% in general fund revenues, and an economic reserve of 8% of general fund revenues. My recommendation is that we have 25%. That's a quarter of the year, or a 3-month reserve. In the fiscal 16-17 budgeted operating expenditures, based on the original budget, 25% is 4.2 million. And let's see, I think we're up to questions. If you don't have any questions for me, or if you do, I will answer them, but otherwise I would ask you to please approve the revised policy.
Okay.
I just had a couple of questions. I liked the changes that you made, a lot of the wording changes and some of the assumptions. But I did have, on the last page, or page 8 of the policy, just a couple of things.
Sure.
It talks about the sources and timing of replenishment. It says when the fund, and it's basically just a wording thing. It says when the fund balances fall below the amount for economic stability, city staff will provide a plan for city council consideration to restore reserve amount within 3 years using the budget strategies below, and they are laid out. My question is, when in time does the budget plan actually get done? I mean, is that, I take it to mean that over a 3-year period, the reserve will come up to what the economic strategy reserve amount is supposed to be. Is that correct?
That's the intention. As I see this thing functioning in part of the budget process, we would need to identify in the budget process what is the amount of the budget and what is the amount of the reserve. And the council would then adopt that as part of the budget process. If for some reason we had to go into that 25% and use it, what I would recommend is that before the council approve that, or in an emergency basis, you're going to do it, but at some point you need staff to give you a plan of how to restore it up to the 25%. And I think that would either be, if there was an emergency basis where you had to use some of that funding, it would be as soon as is feasible following that period of time. I would think the 3-year period is, if we don't think we're going to be able to rebuild or recover from an emergency, that 3 years gives us some time, some leeway to actually come up with a plan if we're not able to recover within like a 12-month period.
Yeah, and I agree with that. My whole point was just trying to figure out when was the plan going to be put together and presented to council.
Oh.
Because it just says the plan will be put in place, but it doesn't tell us when.
My expectation, and perhaps we need to tweak the wording, I'm not sure, my expectation would be that if those reserves are used, we would be required, and there's somewhere in here we talk about if the city manager has to use them for an emergency, he would come back to the council as soon as possible. I think that if we were to use that money, we would still have to come back to you as soon as possible with a plan for replenishment.
Right, and I'm just saying, is that within the next budget cycle, within 3 months, 6 months?
No, I would say as soon as possible to be within, the next, within a meeting or two, a month or two. I think if we use it, we need to immediately address how to reestablish it.
I think the idea is, 30, 60 days, to get back to the council.
Okay, yeah.
That would be reasonable.
And we can add that to the policy.
And that's fine. I just, it was unclear to me, because I was reading it and thinking, well, it shouldn't take, someone could vaguely interpret this to mean you got 3 years to bring the plan back, but
yeah, no,
that
was not the intention at all.
Purpose. No. And then my other question was, in the last paragraph, you eliminated that the policy would be reviewed every 4 years, and you struck that and put in periodically. Is there a reason why we wouldn't set a minimum policy review period, or what was your thinking there?
My thinking basically is just to allow a little more flexibility. If we are moving along with the 25% policy and we find that that's working for us, we wouldn't necessarily need to review it. In 4 years, we might go a longer period of time. I removed it because I didn't want to force us to look at it again in 4 years if we didn't need to.
Okay.
But I do want it to have the provision in there to periodically review it.
Good. I think the changes were otherwise really good. I was pleasantly surprised to read it. Thank you. Very good job.
Any other questions for me?
Okay, do we move to adopt a resolution approving it? Please, anybody?
So moved.
You got 3.
Wow.
I'll second.
Okay.
Give it to Kurt.
You were first. Who's second, only because. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye, approved 5-0, unanimous. Okay, so now we're going to adjourn the city council meeting and convene to the Galt Successor Agency. Roll call, please. Donna?
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Present. Board members.
actually, Board Member Cruz, Board Member Hewer,
Here?
Board Member Campion,
Here.
Board Member Lamson,
Here.
Board Member Powers.
Here. Okay, no public comment, correct?
No, I have none.
All righty, so the information and consent calendars, the minutes of the April 5th, 2016 meeting, and the successor agency warrants. Do I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second?
Call for the vote, please.
Board Member Cruz,
Aye.
Board Member Hewer,
Aye.
Board Member Campion,
Aye.
Board Member Lamson,
Aye.
Board Member Powers.
Aye. Okay, now we have a resolution of the successor agency adopting the recognized obligation payment schedule for July 2017 to June 2018.
Mayor, I have asked Michelle Neely, our accounting manager, to present this item.
Good afternoon. Not evening yet, but we're getting there. So you have before you the recognized obligation payment schedule for July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. We generally call that the ROPS. The agency is requesting funding for several items, including debt service payments, administrative and professional services, and the CCSD settlement agreement payment. Once this is approved, the report will be submitted to the Oversight Board on January 26th for their approval. Submission is due to the Department of Finance by February 1st. If anyone has any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we ask for your approval.
Questions, anyone? Okay, can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, did you get that? Okay,
Campion and Cruz.
yep, call for the vote, please.
Board Member Cruz,
Aye.
Board Member Hewer,
Aye.
Board Member Campion,
Aye.
Board Member Lamson.
Aye.
Board Member Powers.
Aye. Okay, now we're going to adjourn to the successor agency and reconvene to the city council. And Donna, we're at you, but we've already done the commission, but what you have to,
That's all for tonight.
that's all for today. Okay, comments by staff, Emily, Chris,
Thank you, no more.
Mr. Winkler?
Just a quick update on water conservation. The city residents and businesses continue to do well. We're using a new two-year average of fiscal years 2013, calendar years 2013 and 14. And our current December was at just about 23%,
good.
below the 2013-14 December. Back when we started mandatory conservation, we were looking at the year 2013, and if we were still using that base, we'd be at 34.4%. So keep up the good work in Galt.
Anything else, Michelle? Mark? Armando?
I do. I'd like to remind council and those viewing that the Winter Bird Festival will be this Saturday. It'll be from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'd like to remind you guys to check our website because we're having some cancellations due to flooding at the preserve, so we've had to cancel a couple of our tours, and we may have to relocate a couple of other tours to different locations. So people can keep an eye on our website to get updates.
Thank you. Chief?
On Sunday was the 4th anniversary of Officer Kevin Ton's death, or murder here in Galt. And I just want to thank all the public for coming out and supporting, and all the city staff that came out and supported. It was the biggest turnout we've had in a couple of years. And so I know the family appreciates it, and they wanted me to say thank you for them.
Jean?
Nothing more to add tonight, thank you.
Okay, Steve. You want to keep going right around the circle. Kurt?
Nope.
Paige?
What the chief said with Mary Lou and myself and Mark were at the memorial, the wreath laying, and it was nice to see some new honor guards added to our ranks, and it was a lovely, lovely memory. Thank you guys so much.
Lori?
So just that I did attend with the city manager and the city attorney, the Prop 64 presentation by the league. It's also available online. If you go to the league's website, they have it available online, and I think that would be a great thing for all the council to listen to and become more aware. So otherwise, just hope to see people at the Bird Festival. Are the food trucks going to be at the Bird Festival?
Sacto Mofo will be sending 2 trucks, and so that'd be it's a nice addition.
Yeah. Vice Mayor?
I just want to reiterate the number of people who showed up, and we actually caught our assemblyman off guard. Jim Cooper was there as well, and he was just flabbergasted by the turnout. And he looked over to me and says, "It's because we're family. When we stay together as family," and that's what I believe about this community.
I say those sentiments exactly. It was a beautiful day for a sad occasion. Officer Tone will always be in our hearts, and we do want to thank the public for coming out. And as Armando says too, please check the website for anything on the Bird Festival that may be canceled due to weather. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.